Good morning. I want to welcome all of you to the May 9th, 2017 meeting of the Sacramento County Board of Supervisors. I want to thank all of who joined with us this morning. And we've got a pretty full agenda both in the morning and the afternoon, and so we look forward to working through the items and hearing from some of you on some of the items we have before us today. So as we get started, just note we don't expect one of our colleagues to be here today due to illness. Is that correct? Yeah.
I believe she'll be arriving a little bit later.
Well, later, maybe join us a little later. Okay. So with that, then I'm going to turn to our clerk, Flo Evans, to call the roll, establish a quorum, read a couple things in the record, and then we'll start with a Pledge of Allegiance and get into the agenda. So.
Good morning, Supervisors. Cerna?
Here.
Kennedy?
Here.
Peters is absent. Frost?
Here.
Natoli?
Here.
And you have a quorum.
Flo, just if you could, we're showing the vote up on the board here versus the screen. There you go. Thank you.
No problem. This meeting of the Sacramento County Board of Supervisors is cablecast live on Metro Cable 14, the local government affairs channel on the Comcast, Consolidated Communications, and AT&T U-verse cable systems. The meeting is closed caption and is webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv. Today's meeting will be repeated Friday, May 12th at 6 p.m. on Channel 14. A DVD copy is available for checkout from any local library branch. Members of the audience wishing to address the board may fill out a speaker slip and hand it to staff. When the chair calls your name, please come to the podium. Also, please silence your electronic devices at this time.
Okay, thank you. I know we have some students that we're going to recognize here, and so I don't know if Teresa or Troy would like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'd join us, and one of you want to come to the podium and invite us to, or maybe both of you. Why don't you both of you come forward and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance if you would. No pressure.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. I know you weren't prepared to do that, but we'll get a chance to recognize you for some of your outstanding work in a moment, so thanks for being here with us. Okay, Flo, we'll turn to the agenda. I know we have an off-agenda speaker here. We'll try to get to that sometime this morning if we have a gap in the items. And so I know Mr. King is here, so if you'll be patient, we'll try to work that in amongst some of the other items. So, Flo, go ahead.
Okay, so for your consent matters, items 1 through 42. For item number 2, you are introducing an ordinance adding Chapter 11.02 and amending Chapter 11.32 of Title 11 of the Sacramento County Code relating to airports. You're waiving full reading and continuing to May 23rd for adoption. Also, for item 31, you're introducing an ordinance amending Chapter 16.140 of the Sacramento County Code relating to the technology cost recovery fee, waiving full reading and continuing to May 23rd for adoption. For item 32, I want to make a note that you're adopting an ordinance amending Chapter 16.90 of Title 16 of the Sacramento County Code relating to construction permits. You waived reading on this item on April 25th. And that concludes my notes for your consent matters.
Okay. I turn to my colleagues and see if they have any items you wish to either speak to or pull off the consent calendar. Ms. Ross? No. Okay. Mr. Kennedy? Mr. Cern? Okay. I just had a couple of items I wanted to comment on. And maybe you could read those into the record. Items 16, 21, and 22. If you could, Flo. And we'll leave them on the consent calendar. I want to make an offer.
Okay, no problem. Item 16, authorize the sheriff to execute expenditure agreements with 12 medical personnel registries for fiscal years 2017-18 through 2019-20.
21 and 22.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
I'll do that all
if you
at
could,
once.
please.
No
Yeah.
problem. Authorize the sheriff to execute an agreement with American Correctional Solutions, Incorporating, doing business as Spectrum Accountable Care Company, Incorporated, in the amount of $2,293,243 for on-site radiological services at the Sacramento County Adult Correctional Facilities for the period of July 1, 17 through June 30th, 20. And then for item 22, authorize the sheriff to execute an agreement with American Correctional Solutions in the amount of $1,269,081 to operate on-site medical specialty care clinics at the Sacramento County Adult Correctional Facilities for the period of July 1, 2017 through June 30th, 2020.
Good. Thank you for reading those into the record. Just wanted to offer a comment that the total of these 3 contracts over a 3-year period for very necessary and certainly important to the welfare of the inmates in the county jails totals almost $20 million here. And I know that, at least as one member of this board, I've asked questions about correctional health as it relates to general fund expenditures and a growing amount of money that's being required annually in our budgets. And I guess the comment I wanted to make between, again, these have an annual amount of about $6.5 million in estimated cost, and then, as I said, a total almost $20 million, is that we just routinely approve these on the consent calendar. And again, we can't have a gap in those services because the people are in our care and custody 24/7. But I guess what I'd like to ask you, Nav, and I know we had a chance to chat about this a bit. I continue to have concerns about, the ability for us to have some, and I don't say oversight may not be the right word, but to have some better understanding about any cost containment and where we're headed, because the presumption is that, and I think it's rightfully fair to presume and assume that we're going to provide these services. But I don't know if we get best value. We have to we're utilizing registries now for going on 20 years, which has a certain amount of cost associated with it. We contract for specialty services for X-ray and other services within the in specialty care. And then we also transport off-site. There's a cost associated with deputies that have to transport. We have contracts with other health providers, including, I believe it's San Joaquin County. And so all that bundled together, to me, just presents a very high dollar number. And again, one maybe that's not avoidable, and maybe we're getting best value. But I don't have a strong sense about that as we continue to move forward in our budgetary considerations for this year and years going forward. These contracts now are for 3 years. So we're basically going to build budgets around this for the next 3 years without really having had that, what I believe needs to be a more thorough conversation by this board, certainly involving the community and the sheriff and healthcare providers and whoever else would be a part of that. And I thought we were going to get a better look at this when we had the adult correction review some time ago, but that focused more on in custody and some of the costs associated with this. And so I don't know if you want to offer any comments now, but I felt compelled this morning to raise this once again because, we approved this today, and it's done for the next 3 years.
No, I appreciate the comments, and I am going to work, and our team's going to work with the sheriff's staff about the questions you've asked. You've been asking those questions for a couple of years. We owe you a better answer than what we've given you. And our plan is to come back and give you what is the cost containment, what is it that we've been doing. This is a line item, if you will. The budget unit has seen some expenditure increases, and as you mentioned, these are expenses that are unavoidable. But the question still stays: are we doing everything we can to save money in it? And we're going to be pursuing that.
And I would just highlight once again, I've said it once or twice this morning, but these are not monies that flow from federal state sources primarily, although realignment money comes from state. We use that for some of the health care offset, I believe. I could be wrong. But in large part, these are general fund expenditures because once folks are in our custody, they don't qualify for, Medi-Cal or certainly Medicare, I guess, if they were that aged. But it just seems to me that we have to retain focus on this and can do right by the folks that are in our custody and care, but also it takes capacity for our ability to provide for folks who may have similar needs but are unable to access them in the broader community as well as the expenditure dollars. And I think we're at 32 million general fund contribution and probably $50 million or more in general in expenditures. If I'm not mistaken, those numbers may be a bit off. But
That's correct.
Okay. And so, again, I appreciate your comments, and I guess I would trust that maybe as soon as by the time we get into budget conversations in a few weeks that we could have a little clearer idea as to how you're going to kind of delve into this. I know you've been giving some thought to it, so I appreciate that.
I will do.
Yeah. Supervisor Stern, you.
No, Mr. Chair, I actually do have some questions on other items.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, I just, okay. That's all I had on that, and so I sort of believe it was on consent calendar, so I'll turn to Mr. Serna. So.
Thank you. If the clerk could please read item 33.
Item 33 is the resolution of intention to purchase approximately 12.64 acres of vacant land located in the Old Florentown Special Planning Area from the Farm to Future Associates Limited Partnership to facilitate a community park and urban farm. The environmental document is a notice of exemption.
Okay, thanks. If I could have Chris Bahuli approach the podium, please. Just a question about the statement made in the overview section of the board letter, Chris. Let's see, it's about 2/3 of the way down the first paragraph there. It says, Southgate is in support of this recommendation and will develop a 2.31 acre public park. Parcel 4 is depicted in attachment 2, and a 10.33 acre urban farm, parcel 1, is depicted in attachment 2, to serve as a project training center or another park. What is another park? What's that reference? That's a little nebulous.
Yeah, I think we'd like to create some flexibility. I think the intent is for it to be a farm, a working farm, and also a training opportunity for the housing residents. There's still a lot of due diligence that needs to be done regarding the farm, and that being a viable option for that site. And so we plan on creating some flexibility in the conveyance agreement to Southgate that should a farm not be feasible on that site for one reason or another, that it could be developed as a park.
On that site?
Correct.
Okay, all right. Thank you. And then item 46, please.
Item 46, the timed item.
It's a timed item.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, we'll get to it in a moment. You okay with that?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure Mr. Wheat didn't go anywhere.
No, he's not.
No. He has some consent and timed items, so, okay.
All right, thank you.
All right. I did have just a couple other items I wanted to call out. On items 6 and 7, which are the extensions of the declaration of emergency based upon the flood events we had both in January and February. Would it be possible that we could get maybe within, assuming you'll be back here in the next 30 days, to kind of get a point in time as to where we are in the claiming process? I know that as recently as last evening, I had a conversation with someone who, again, they're waiting to do some repairs. Excuse me, it was yesterday morning, but they're waiting to hear from FEMA. It happens to be out of county, but on one of the JPAs I sit on, and so they're going to send their engineers out. But we're going to get into a season when repairs can be made. So again, with some of the damage that occurred in this county, I guess I'm curious as to, again, we don't control that, but what is the time expectation relative to either claims that have been submitted and whether they'll be paid on, whether they get authorized, and then so that people don't lose too much of the construction season if they have to actually do repairs, including us. We're claiming for road damages and so forth. Can we go ahead and proceed with some of those repairs? We continue to fill potholes, but if there's other repairs that need to be made. So I think it would be helpful to maybe have a more comprehensive, without having a lot of extra work, to get some sense of where we are, Nav. And again, if we need to weigh in with our representatives, certainly congressional representatives and/or the federal agencies, to be an assist, at least make sure we get attention, because we weren't the only area in California, obviously, or certainly in the United States, that's been damaged this winter by a variety of weather types of activities. So I guess I would just ask that we have some sense about that, because we'll be into June by the time we get this for the next time, and well into the construction season. One other item, if I could, and that would be on the item 23, which is the agreement on the red light photo enforcement program. Could we ask that we could have an annual report put at least on our agenda? So again, I think it's important to see those statistics, and I think the safer activity at those intersections where there had been a prevalence of accidents and so forth. And so I just think it's important for the public to track that, and we don't see this. I don't think we don't see those annual reports. The Sheriff's Department may see them, but I think it would be good for, if nothing else, on a consent item or information item to appear on the agenda. So as a part of that, if we could have an annual point in time as to, the accidents and reduction in number of accidents at those locations where we, nearly 24 plus locations. I think it would be important to have that. Okay. All right, and then last, I would just note that on item 29, I see Ray Trethaway and some of the folks from Neighborhoods program here, and we have that on the consent calendar to continue to work with them on tree planting in our community. So I just want to acknowledge Ray and the folks that are with him, and we'll take action in just a moment as soon as I quit talking. So, okay? All right, good. All right, Flo, anything else? All right. I had no one signed to speak on any item on the consent agenda. Is there anyone here wish to address any consent matter? All right, then seeing none, motion would be in order. Okay, been moved. Chair would second it to approve the consent calendar, noting the items, and there does require a 4/5 vote on item 11. So unless there's any abstentions or recusals, then we'll go ahead and vote this. So, all right, please vote.
Unanimous vote with those members present.
Okay, very good. All right, thank you very much.
Okay.
And we'll go down to our presentations. We have several. And so,
You sure do. For item 43, it's the presentation of resolution proclaiming May 7th through 13th, 2017, Public Service Recognition Week in Sacramento County.
okay, I think we have some folks here to receive that proclamation. I don't know if anyone's going to do any introduction. Is there any introduction on this? So is Kelly or Rich or Keith here? I'm going to have to hold this presentation. I had noted that we had some folks representing one of our employee groups, I think from IT, that were going to be here this morning to receive this. So maybe we can check and intervene anytime, and I'll have my office check on that flow, and we'll come back to that. So, all right. Tell me we got a framed resolution for them, so it's here for to get.
They've got to pick it
Okay,
up.
next then.
Okay, for your next item 44, it's the presentation of resolution proclaiming May of 2017 as Mental Health Awareness Month in Sacramento County.
Okay, I believe Mr.
I don't see the recipient here either. Is there anybody here from NAMI? I didn't think so.
Want to hold for a second?
Yep.
Okay, we'll hold that. I see that Uma has her green scarf on, so if not, Uma or Sherry could receive this, but some of us, all of us have our green ribbons on, so we'll come back to that one. So we're
All
0 for
right.
2. We're 0 for 2. Let's see if we can get the third one here. So
Let's try for item 45, which is a presentation of resolution honoring History Day awards.
I think we have folks in the audience for that. So, okay, Dr. Bob, you want to come forward and offer a little bit of background, and then I'll come down. I know we have the students to recognize, and we'll get into the
Thank you. I am Bob LaPeria, representing the Sacramento County History Day Committee. Sacramento County History Day, held yearly in early March as part of the triad of California State History Day and National History Day. Winners at the county level progress to state, and state winners go to national. It is, for ease of description, the history counterpart of science fairs, which most people are familiar with, and it's organized by the Sacramento County Office of Education and the Center for Sacramento History through the History Day Committee. History Day is open to grades 4 through 12, with, in California, grades 4th and 5th competing in a poster category. 6th through 12th grades compete in junior and senior divisions in one of 5 categories: performances, exhibits, websites, documentaries, or papers. And each year a theme is determined that guides the topics that the students choose. The theme the students had to follow for this year was taking a stand in history. Their education in techniques such as proper researching through primary and secondary sources is an adjunct to the regular classes. In addition to the judging for progression to state and national, Sacramento County has a special awards program with a variety of organizations giving awards to stimulate and interest the students in aspects of history they may not generally think of or be aware of. It's always a real joy to see the enthusiasm of these students and the amazing quality of their projects. I encourage everyone to get involved with this wonderful program. Information can be found at sachistoryday.org. This year, there are 288 students involved with a total of 176 projects. The Board of Supervisors awards are in the Special Awards category, and this year 2 projects will be presented a resolution from the board. I will introduce each project and the student or students involved. The first project was from Sacramento Country Day School and was a website entitled Edward Snowden, the Man Who Fought for Transparency, Privacy, and Liberty. And it was done by Allison Zhang, Alex Rogoski, and Yuzhao Mo. Unfortunately, 2 of those 3 are taking AP exams this morning.
I guess that's really fortunate if they're doing advanced placement, but they're not able to be here, so.
And the third had a conflict at the last minute, so I will take those resolutions and make sure the students receive them. The second project that's awarded is from Monterey Trail High School in Elk Grove. Again, it was a website entitled Enabling the Disabled, How the ADA Came to Be, and this was done by Annalisa Villoria, Tree Nicholas Lee, and Teresa Wynn. And we have Tree and Teresa here today to receive their awards. The other 2 students, again, were scheduled this morning for AP exams, and we'll make sure that the other 2 students do get their resolution. And I thank you and thank the board very much for doing this on an annual basis.
Okay, well, I'll come down and join you. Well, we're delighted to have Teresa and Tree here with us, and certainly Dr. Bob, I want to thank him for his good work over the years, certainly his tremendous interest in preserving local history and his work in that regard, but also I think in encouraging the generations that come behind us to get involved and to understand more about our community, about our world, and certainly about events that affect our lives in many different ways. And so certainly Sacramento County History Day and all the activity that goes into that, working with our schools, with teachers, obviously, and parents, and the young people then who are engaged at various levels in their school pursuits, really, I think, highlights some of the tremendous energy that they bring, and I think creativity in researching their projects. And actually, these folks become researchers and go and learn more about the subject matter based upon the theme, and then put together projects. And today we have some of the award winners here with us, and we just note that as Dr. Bob said, Enabling Disabled, how the ADA came to be was a project that these 2 young folks, along with 2 of their colleagues, were involved in. And I'm going to invite them in a moment. Just tell us a little about your project, if you wouldn't mind doing that. And certainly recognize you. So I guess Teresa got tabbed. Tree just give her this. So, and so at any rate, I'll let them tell a little bit about the project, and we'll do a presentation. So.
Thank you. Our project was a website on the ADA, which is the American with Disabilities Act of 1990. And previous to the project, we hadn't really known anything about disabilities, but engaging in the project, we were able to study both the social aspect of disabilities and how that hindered so many people from jobs and school and public accommodations, but as well as the political side with why we didn't have these laws to protect the people with disabilities. So it was a really great learning experience. Thank you.
I agree with her.
Well, that's good. And again, we appreciate your work. And again, I think both of you have certainly budding careers, in whether it's in the world of government, but certainly as you go on with your academic pursuits. And so let me ask you: are you seniors, juniors?
We're juniors.
Seniors. And what are you interested in going into?
I'm still undecided.
I'm undecided too.
Yeah.
Okay. Has this in any way affected you or your 2 fellow students as to maybe what your career pursuits might be in studying this? Did that maybe motivate you to want to do something in the area of disability rights?
I think for me, it's opened myself up to. I've never really been interested, I guess, in politics, and so now it gave me a new perspective on how politics help society.
Okay. Very good. Very good. And you agree with her, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Always agree with her.
You got that line down well. Okay. Anyway, with that, we want to say congratulations to you on being our special award winners, and certainly thank your teachers. And Is this a parent with you today?
That's our teacher.
Oh, well, come on up. My God, get the teacher right. Tell us who you are. You got to tell us about your students. I didn't realize you were the teacher. So. Good morning.
Good morning.
Monterey Trail High School. So go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. My students have been working since last summer on their projects. They're quite shy. I'm sure if they were actually in the competition and in front of judges and giving the interview, they would be spewing an enormous amount of facts, as they usually do when I ask them questions about their project. They are labor intense, and they do take time and effort to learn the research, all of which are skills that they will greatly use at the university level. And while they are undecided in what they want to do, I am most thankful for the opportunity to have worked with them.
We thank you. Now, did they do was it a written presentation, or did you like do a YouTube video, or what did you?
It's an actual website.
Oh, you actually do a website?
Yes. If you want the link, I'm sure you can just email me, and I will send you the link, and you can take a look and look at their work.
We actually broadcast that out so all of our viewers in TV land can, if you want to.
Oh, sure. What is your actual website address?
There's a series of numbers that I do not recall.
Okay, well, I'll send you the link. You can
really
email
want to
me.
Who do they call it that?
You can just email me at mfpoe@egusd.net.
Okay, MFPOE at Unified School District. Okay, very good. Well, we thank you for your work, and again for providing the guidance and the, I think the leadership it takes to help inspire and motivate the young people. Obviously, took it upon themselves to do their work, but it takes a great instructor to do that as well. So we thank you and compliment you as well. So, okay, well we have proclamations for you, Teresa, and for Tree.
Thank you so much.
You bet. And then we have them extras for, I guess, for the two students of Monterey Trail. So you give that to
Thank you.
Very good. Day school. And do you want to take a photo with
That'd be great.
Okay. So, do you want to take a picture, Dr. Bob?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me get through it.
You can turn this way if you'd like, and that way you can.
Okay.
Yeah.
You want me to hold
Oh, yeah. There you go.
I'll just hold it.
Congratulations to you. Good luck and enjoy your summer to come. And good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks, man. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Okay. We'll return to the agenda. Did Patrick, anybody from your group?
Yeah, no, Mr. Chair, I still don't see the organization representative that was to be here. As we know, we have approved a resolution proclaiming May as Mental Health Awareness Month, and I'll make sure that that gets to the individual and the organization. But in the meantime, we also have, I believe there's queued up in there, a short video.
Sure.
This is actually a short film. It was created by a Franklin High School student, Holly Chang. It's the Student Educational Video Awards 2017 Creative Expression winner. It was shown recently at a mental health board meeting and among other places, and so thought that the board would enjoy seeing the work by Ms. Chang.
Great.
精神病太荒谬了，你不是有精神病，你只是太累了，睡一觉就好了。精神病在华人世界里是一种带有羞愧、耻辱感的疾病。
你好吗？最近有什么事困扰着你？可以告诉我你的痛苦吗？我真的很担心你。
我不知道怎样开口表示我的痛苦。我的父母不明白我到底发生了什么，他们只是敷衍我。
你知道我就在你身边的，我会帮助你的。
希望通过我们的项目研究，有更多的人们来参与、帮助和关爱这个特别的群体，让他们有信心面对自己，面对生活，热爱生活。
Yeah, I did.
And I believe I misspoke. I said Franklin High School. I meant Florin High School. But I thought that was amazing work that was done. So.
You know, I would concur with you. I happened to be at the awards that evening and saw the young lady receive her award, and to think that, one, obviously they picked the topic area, but then to take that to the creativity level, and I think to embody with the message that is there really says a lot about, obviously, the insightfulness, I think, of the young person and her peers who put that together. But the message is there, you know, relates to stop the stigma, and certainly the efforts that are focused during the month that we recognized in the resolution. And thank you, Patrick, for your leadership on the Mental Health Board and others. And I don't know if Uma or either Sherry or Dr. Heller would like to come forward and offer any other words about activities, or you, Patrick, as well. I know that there's I think a session scheduled for this Saturday, and there are some other activities. But I think this young person certainly captured a lot of the sentiment as it relates to trying to overcome some of the mental illness challenges in our community.
Thank you, Supervisors. I don't have the full calendar of events in my head and might need to rely on others for that. I do want to express the appreciation of the Mental Health Board and the whole behavioral health team staff to the Board of Supervisors for this recognition. We're very proud of our anti-stigma work. We're very proud of that, of the fact that the project's working, and we've got good data to show that the people in our community are more supportive of their friends and neighbors and relatives with mental illness than they were even a few years ago. So we're thrilled with that. There are plenty of times when Ms. Zajkowski and I have to come up here and talk to you about the fact that we need to spend more money. And that we may be over budget on certain lines with treating mental illness. And this is a chance to pause and look at it from the other side and say how great it is that more people are seeking help and that they're willing to come forward and seek help for their family members and for themselves, and that it's not, and it's recognized as an illness and it's not seen as a stigma. There's a lot of support. There's more insurance coverage. There's more Medicaid coverage. There's more understanding among law enforcement officers and others that there are people out there who need help, and that their behavior is a symptom of illness rather than intent. So for all of those reasons, we're seeing more demand for our services, and this is an opportunity this month to say, okay, that's a good thing. That's really a good thing, and we're proud of the work that we do. Thanks for the opportunity.
Well, thank you, Sherry, and thanks for the work, certainly, of our professional staff for their efforts to assist the community and certainly help direct resources in a manner it can best be used. But extend our thanks to Ms. Cheng, and might be that we would reach out to her, invite her to participate in some of the other activities. And I know with the Saturday focus, I think we have isn't there a mental health fair, Uma, on Saturday? The 13th? Maybe you can, maybe you can come up and before we leave the topic here, and I don't know if it's too late to invite Holly to maybe join you, but it might be featured there, and I'm not so sure she was getting as much play with this, airtime, but I think it's important because the message there is certainly for young people, but for people of different cultures, but just as human beings, the message is a really strong one in her video. So
it is on Saturday, so we have invited all the high school students to also join us. There is a fair, Living Wealth Expo 2017, which is the big fair that we are doing in Sacramento County, and it's in Maple Neighborhood Center, and I'll leave this for everyone. I think we've sent it to...
Yeah, but you can put it down right, and we can put it up on the... No, other way. There you go, face up. There you go.
Oh, sorry.
And maybe they can zoom in on that a little bit.
Okay.
There it has the details, so.
We have, this is the 5th year that we've been doing all the activities around prevention, and we have engaged a lot of our community. So this has a lot of all our providers, a lot of community members present, so we really want to extend the invitation to everybody to attend. And there are just a lot of different places, high schools, community centers, health programs that have been engaged by this program. So it'll be a really good fair, so we hope people can attend. Thank you very much for your support.
Yeah, thank you, Emma. Thanks for coming up and for putting the flyer up there for us. So, okay, well, very good. And then Mr. Kennedy will see to it that our recipients get the framed copy of the resolution. So, and thank NAMI for their work in our community as well. Okay, with that then, Flo, I think we'll move to the next agenda item. I know we got a pretty full agenda here.
So it's okay to move to item 46. Okay. Authorize the Director of Airports to execute the scheduled airline operating agreement and terminal building lease between the County of Sacramento and the airlines operating at Sacramento International Airport and Mather Airports.
Good morning. The agenda item we have today is a culmination of a lot of work over the last few years. 3.5 years ago, we established several goals. One of those was to get our cost per enplaned passenger under $14. And the methodology we were using one of the methodologies we were using to get that, besides all of the cost-cutting measures that we've implemented to date, is to negotiate a new agreement with our air carriers where we could modify a few things within our rate methodologies to continue to bring their rates down. We also had the goal going into this negotiation to reduce the county's risk, to ensure that we had space guarantees over the term of the agreement. That we would, it goes a long ways in improving our airline relationships, and then it also required an action on Title 11 because currently Title 11 has all of our rate charges, which the board has taken action on earlier this morning. The next two slides really give you an idea associated with the business terms associated with this agreement. It's a 5-year agreement that goes into effect July 1, 2017. It has a extension period, 5-year term extension, but it has to be mutual between all the parties. It provides for lease guarantees. What we mean by that is the air carriers sign up for space within the terminals. They sign up for that space for a 5-year period, so if they change or they leave or they need to size down, they still are on the hook for that space. It creates two types of air carrier rate charges. One is the signatory and one is the non-signatory. I'll go into the benefits of the signatory because they get a reduced rate. Well, they all get a reduced rate. And then the difference is if you do not wish to sign the agreement, then you'll be known as a non-signatory air carrier, and you'll pay a 20% premium. And what we do is we then issue an operating permit that has all of the insurance and all the liability requirements associated in that. It provides an extraordinary service protection. Currently under the ordinance, if the county were to default on anything associated with any of our bonds or find ourselves in a tough shape where we couldn't make payments, that's currently upon us. We're taking all of the risk. Under this agreement, what happens in that kind of a situation, if we run into a problem of not meeting our coverage or not being able to pay our debt, the air carriers will then pick up that additional cost in operating a business until such time as we can repay them back into the future. So it is really a kind of a fail-safe in reducing the risk. The space assignment and reassignment, the agreement basically everybody chooses their space, they get their space. It also has the ability that if we need to reassign that space or if they're not using that space to its maximum, we can put other carriers into that space so that we're going to maximize the utilization of our facilities. And finally, it has a majority and interest clause. And basically what that is that for certain types of capital improvement projects, if the air carriers, if 75% of the carriers carrying 75% of the passengers have a problem with that project, they can basically disapprove it, which means we go back to the drawing board to discuss how we can reduce those costs or how we can come up with a better solution. Ultimately, there's a time frame on that, whether it's either a 12-month or a 24-month, depending on the size of the project. And then if we can't reach agreement, then the airport will just move ahead with the project. The rate methodology is very similar to the current ordinance. We have 3 types of space, same as we currently have today. One of the big differences is we've incorporated what's called a rolling debt coverage in our industry. Currently, under ordinance, what we do is carriers' rates are made up of 2 things. One are the operating expenses, and the second is the actual debt service we have to pay annually. So that's placed into the cost centers where the actual work was done. The air carriers participate in the airfield cost center, and they also participate in the terminal cost center. And then as we're doing those rates, because we have to meet a 125 coverage under our indentures, we actually charge another 25% every year on that annual debt service. Under the new approach, what we do is once they've paid that, the only amounts that go up and down are as our debt goes up and down, then there's that small amount of money that will be added into their rates. They don't have to keep repaying that every single year. We're also entering into a revenue sharing program. That revenue sharing program is based upon passengers, not based upon what the airlines are paying. To encourage them to bring in the most passengers, you're going to get the largest rebates. One other change is on our common use fees. We used to charge those fees based upon what we call a 2 turns. Like a gate, for instance, we would divide the rate by 2. Now we're dividing it by 3, which is much more within the industry average. And I've already talked about the 20% rate premium. And then we continue the annual settlement, which we currently do today. That is, we do a true up at the end of the year. If they owe us money, they pay us. If we owe them money, we write them a check. You've all seen this, I think, previously, but basically these are our 5-year financial projections that we presented to the air carriers that were put together by our independent financial consultant, Recondo and Associates. And you can see that revenues increase, our expenses, we've made certain calculations associated with that based upon, increased cost and just the cost of doing business. And then it shows how the rates, the process we go through, the methodology we use in determining what we call net remaining revenues. That net remaining revenue number is the number then that is split on the 60/40, and that would be given back to the air carriers in a rebate check. This is the slide that we're most proud of. As you know, it was a very large goal we set of getting these rates under $14. With the approval of this agreement, these are the projected rates that were presented to the air carriers. The budget that you're actually seeing, you're going to be seeing to be approved in the June timeframe. With a few tweaks that we've made with our expenses, those rates are now actually going to be for 2018. We're projecting those rates to be $13.55, which is even an improvement over what we showed the carriers before. And so that's a huge, from our standpoint, that's a huge accomplishment, because what it does, it makes us competitive with other California airports. And finally, the debt service coverage forecast. Currently, in 2017, we're anticipating that to be 1.75 times debt service. It will go down a bit because our rates and charges are going down a bit in the next year in 2018 under the new agreement. But then you can see it builds back up to 1.84 at the end of the first term of this agreement. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions and would request that you approve the agreement.
Okay. Thank you, John. Supervisor Cerna.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, John, for the oral report on this. I think it's clear that this is all good news, and you mentioned hitting the objective of getting to and below $14. I think that's the showcase slide of your set here. So I do appreciate that. My question for you has to do with the 20% premium for non-signatories.
Yes.
Is that an industry standard?
The industry standard is anywhere from 20 to 50%, and so we're on the low end of that. But it's a standard simply because the carriers who are going to be signatory, they're, like you might say, they're putting skin in the game because they're guaranteeing us revenue over that term of that agreement. And the way we've set this up is that every carrier, if they wish to be a signatory, they can come on, because the amounts our carriers who only are using 1 flight a day or 2 flights a day, if they wish to be signatory air carriers, the only thing they'd have to guarantee is a minimum amounts of $250,000 a year. So we've got that threshold extremely low, but we'll leave it strictly up to those carriers, because some carriers just don't want to be a signatory carrier because they want to have the flexibility to move in and move out.
So my question is, what's the elasticity of that premium? I mean, if you consider the floor 20% and the ceiling 50%, what's the sensitivity if you were to make it a 35% premium?
What that does is continue to, for those carriers that you're trying to attract in, new carriers, because as you all know, we have an incentive program that has, where we give out incentives for the first year if a new carrier comes in or someone offers a new service. And the big incentive associated with that is landing fees. What we do is we waive landing fees. Mm-hmm. And so by having the percentage, the 20%, and then having, they pay 20% more on their fees, but yet in the first year they're going to get this incentive, which is going to bring them below what the regular rates would be. We still have an incentive to bring new carriers in here to hopefully start service, and if they're successful here, then they can make a choice. Do I want to be signatory or not be signatory?
So anything above 20% at this point, you think we risk keeping interested new airlines from looking at us?
Especially your low-cost carriers, which are the ones we're courting now. The Spirits, the Allegiants, the Frontiers.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, good. Any other questions or comments regarding this item? Thanks for the report. I don't have any time to speak on this item, so what's the pleasure?
I'd like to move the item.
Okay. It's moved second to approve the item as outlined in the recommendation. If there's nothing further, then please vote.
Unanimous vote.
Okay. All righty. Call the next item, please.
Okay, for item 47, please note for the record that you are acting as the Board of Supervisors and the Sacramento Housing Authority of the County of Sacramento. This is the Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act hearing for the Kensington Apartments.
Okay, I would just note, too, I know we're going to have a staff presentation here, but if there's anyone who wishes to address this, I would ask you please fill out a speaker identification form. We'll call upon you as we get into this item, because I know there's the applicant under the TEFRA hearing that's here as well. So. All right, you're going to introduce the item then?
Yes.
Okay.
Good morning, Chair Natoli and members of the board. Ann Nichols, Sacramento Housing and Redevelopment Agency.
Excuse me, can you arrange the platform so you can speak into the microphones? I can't hear a word you're saying.
Okay.
Good morning, Chair Natoli and members of the board. Ann Nichols, Sacramento Housing and Redevelopment Agency. The report before you outlines the Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act, or TEFRA, hearing related to the proposed construction and permanent financing of Kensington Apartments and the issuance of $38 million tax-exempt bonds by California Statewide Communities Development Authority, or CSCDA. This is the first time in many years staff has brought forward a project for which the Housing Authority was not the bond issuer. The policies approved by the Board of Supervisors state that in limited situations, the agency will allow other issuers, such as CSCDA. In this case of this project, the developer has told the agency that they have a master agreement with CSCDA to issue tax-exempt bonds for the projects throughout the state, and using the same financing team will provide them with cost saving. As for background of this project, the agency staff has worked in close coordination with the developer throughout our due diligence process. Staff met with the developer last fall to explain our application requirements. We received an incomplete application in December, but engaged frequently with the development team in an effort to gather required documentation. Agency staff has made 2 site visits, met with the developer and county supervisor, communicated regularly via phone and email to process our underwriting. Kensington is an existing 301-unit mixed-income development in the Arden Arcade area. 4 of the 24 buildings were built in 1964, and the rest of the buildings were built in 1984. The project was rehabilitated in 1992 when the Housing Authority issued bonds, and there have been limited renovations over the last 10 years. Proposed exterior rehabilitation includes new roofing, photovoltaic solar systems, paint on stucco buildings, thermostats and condensers throughout the property, interior paint and flooring in common areas, and an upgrade to one of 3 elevators. There will be limited fence repair, irrigation, and landscaping. The agency's construction staff was not able to fully confirm that the proposed scope of development and construction budget meet the agency's construction standards per the multifamily lending and mortgage revenue bond policies. However, the developer has assured staff that they are committed to completing all rehabilitation needs. It should be noted that since the agency will not be the issuer, staff from the agency will not be providing on-site inspections to ensure the rehabilitation is completed as described, and will not be monitoring the project's physical condition or resident files annually. As detailed in the staff report, the relocation plan is incomplete, and the resident services agreement is short of hours. Klein Financial Corporation is an experienced developer with over 14,000 mixed-income units in 3 states, including over 10,000 units in California. Alliance Residential Company has been the property management company at Kensington since 2010 and will continue to provide property management services for the developer. The project will be financed with a 4% low-income housing tax credit, tax-exempt bonds, market rate equity, net operating income during construction, and a deferred developer fee. Staff has expressed concerns regarding the terms of the non-amortizing senior loan. In closing, the developer is requesting approval to move forward with a TEFRA hearing related to the proposed financing of Kensington Apartments. Bob Klein and Chad Lewis from Klein Financial Corporation are available to address any questions you may have.
Okay, and thanks for the presentation. Stand by for a second. Let's see if we have questions. I know that we'll certainly want to hear from the applicant on this, but let me turn to colleagues. Any questions of staff at this juncture?
Okay. I'd like to hear from the developer before we get into questions. I'd also like to ask our presenter, did you read the letter that Klein Financial Corporation sent on April 18th?
Yes, I did.
That contradicts several of the things you said?
Yes, I did. I read those. And what we find is the information we have received versus what was in that letter is not completely accurate.
Give me some examples.
For example, the relocation plan.
Please speak up.
For example, excuse me. Okay. For example, the relocation plan. In the relocation plan, we have a third-party consultant review the developer's relocation plan that's included in their application, and they will list off some items that are missing based on the funding source requirements, in this case, state and local. There were a number of items that were requested, and it was not included between the exchanges from the agency and the developer.
Don't say a number of things. Tell me exactly what they are.
For example, the 30, 60-day notices, advisory time, services. I'll have to, excuse me a second. Okay, so the missing items was information regarding advisory services, timeline, per diem allowance, 30, 60-day notices, or an action plan to address potential temporary relocation for those residents who may have allergies or other medical conditions that prevent them from living in their units during construction. And yes, the letter did state that we received that information, but that is not accurate.
Okay, I'm looking at the letter, and it states that they're going to do what is required.
The letter...
The April 18th letter?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no, I'm saying that's what I was pointing out to her.
Good morning, Board. Christine Weikert from SHRA. I think that this is a good example.
Can you please speak up?
Maybe this isn't working because that's not... I think this is a good example of what's happened a lot with our communication with the developer. They absolutely have put in writing, in letters, in narratives, in emails, the fact that they are absolutely committed to doing all the things we requested. But what we do is we actually look at what's submitted. We actually look at the relocation plan. And the relocation plan is not complete. However, the developers have said they will complete those things. So the plan, we would like and expect, because it's one of our requirements, that a plan be written that attaches all those documents that Ann just read off. But they have said that they will make sure those things are done in a narrative, that's for sure. It just wasn't in the plan.
And why doesn't this letter become part of the plan?
It's not signed.
Excuse me?
The letter is not signed.
Well, relocation plan is just like any other plan. It is a standalone document that is reviewed, as Ann said, by an independent consultant. So it should have it probably would have been a technical matter maybe to just update that plan and resubmit it to us, but it was not ever updated. It's an actual standalone plan. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's what it is, a standalone plan.
Are you saying that the letter stating all the things they're going to do is not an enforceable document?
I'm stating those are actual items that should have been included and attached or in a relocation plan. They were not. And then we would have, our process is we get the original plan, we send it to a consultant, they review it, they provide information back to us, the staff, of what needs to be included. We send it back to the developer updates their plan. We then send it back to our consultant one last time for final approval, and usually that's the end of it. What happened was we never got a revised plan back, and Ann's just stating that.
Okay. Now, one of the, I think, difficult things about this project has been that it's getting state funding. We're not funding it. So to explain how much authority we do or don't have over improvements to be done.
So the Board of Supervisors holds the TEFRA hearing, the Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act hearing. You as the local body do that. That is what you're doing today. If you find that this is a project that should receive bond financing, then you will pass that resolution. That resolution is then included in the application to the state, the California Debt Limit Allocation Committee, and the project proceeds through the application and approval process. If the board does not approve that TEFRA hearing, then the application cannot be submitted.
What does the state do with the resolution and all the information coming in about what improvements will be made?
For the TEFRA resolution, they just want to make sure the local jurisdiction has approved this bond issuance, that they've reviewed it and approved it. It's just one of many, many, many items that is submitted as part of the application. And they will do their due diligence to see if the project has included everything you need for bond issuance. And
so do they have requirements about what needs to be improved, like SHRA does?
They're not as stringent. They just have a bottom line per unit number of $15,000 requirement. You cannot get a bond approved without $15,000 per unit in rehab.
So do they read the reports that you've written about the things that need to be done and the letters that have been submitted?
So what happens is the applicant does not submit, the developer does not submit the application to the state. It is actually the bond issuer. So when we're the bond issuer, we put all the information that we have found and all the things that we have verified with them that are going to be done to the property in our application to the state. I assume CSCDA will do that in this case. I don't know what CSCDA will put in their application. I know what we would have put in if we were applying, but I assume they will go by what the developer's saying they'll do.
That's all I have for the moment.
Okay. All right. Stand by. Supervisor Cerna, and I have some questions too.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is less than optimal because I'm hearing a number of things over the last less than a week's time about not only this project but the nature of a very tight housing market, the nature of in some cases tighter multifamily housing market, and that gauged against the other very complex effort underway to prioritize vouchers for chronically homeless folks. And what's unfortunate or less than optimal about all this is I'm hearing different things. First of all, correct me if I'm wrong, the commission itself had 4 abstentions on this?
3 or 4, yes.
Okay, that's pretty odd. That begs a bigger question for a different day about decision-making on that commission. But to me, that's the first element that makes it this kind of strange. And then I think I'm hearing, well, they have communicated, that is, the developer has communicated a willingness to provide the information that has been requested. It just has not manifested itself in the form that the agency requires, which is in a quote-unquote plan. Now, is there any, based on what you just said, Christine, about the fact that what gets submitted to the state, which is from us, not the developer, directly to the state, is there an opportunity, based on the commitment from the developer, to provide the information that has been requested in the form of a plan, to have that information, you know, I guess, reprocessed in the form that SHRA needs it in between now and the time that it would be submitted to the state?
So I just want to be clear, while the relocation plan was inadequate, there was other information that we just didn't receive, so we'd have to receive some of it. Because the application is due Friday and your hearing is today, unless the developer requested it to, we submit the application at the next round, which is in 2 months. I think it would not really be possible. You're hearing it today, so there's really not an opportunity with a Friday application.
Meanwhile, we exacerbate the problem of investment in these types of projects, which I think anyone would be hard-pressed to argue we don't need more of everywhere in the county. We've got 2% vacancy rates, which, you know, I don't remember ever seeing around here. At the same time, we see rents taking a trajectory that keeps a lot of folks certainly out of home ownership, but even some out of being able to afford an apartment these days. So the last thing I want to be part of is a decision that is going to exacerbate that problem, especially when we're embarking on this whole new effort to creatively use our vouchers, which will necessarily require the participation of multifamily operators because of process. When we have, at least we have some commitment that the information that is requested is going to be provided. That's the last thing I want to be part of. And I'll leave my comments there right now.
Okay. I know that Supervisor Frost wants away. I did want to just, while you're there, Christine and Ann, and I had a chance to talk with the applicant representatives, Mr. Klein and others yesterday. Certainly had a chance to brief with staff about this. And I'll just say, and I said it to them, and I'll say this very publicly, that in my years as a member of this board, we've had a number of TEFRA hearings, but rarely, if ever, have I seen a report that, at least from staff, that reflected, I think, the level of concern that was expressed here, recognizing there's been some, since the time I guess this was prepared, there's been some additional dialogue, but I think obviously in doing the due diligence that we require of our staff, and you're acting upon direction that was given some 25 years ago, I believe now, if I'm not mistaken, 1992 was, some of this was set in motion, maybe been some amendments to that relative to what certainly this community, through its representatives and the Board of Supervisors, expectations are as it relates to certainly rehabilitation, but the construction of projects and also the conduct as it relates to if there are work that has to be done relative to relocation, certainly services to be provided. So again, you're not acting in a vacuum, and I think what wasn't captured in the staff report, and I too have read the letter from Klein that pointed out, some of, at least from their perspective, not only some of the meetings that occurred with Supervisor Peters, but with SHRA staff and other principals in this. And I guess the concern that I have is that again, we have a short time frame. Obviously, you've been working with that, so as the developer and the applicant here, and that certainly crunches it now when it gets to us on this date, because there's very little time unless there was a delay that then could put, I guess, some of the financing in jeopardy, that allows for very much back and forth here today in this hearing. But I guess I would say that I think the process, to the degree that it's been frustrating probably from both sides, and I think staff, when I read through the report here and I see in the statements, and now if it was subsequently provided, then it was, or if it was provided and it wasn't acknowledged, but when you say that staff was not provided documentation and haven't conducted, and the developer says that we hope it's going to be this and so forth. Those are words that get my attention. Again, I've read enough reports, and as do my colleagues, I'm sure. And this is not negative in that sense, but it certainly leaves those gaps. And I think the assurances that we turn to you, obviously, in working with the parties that come before us to provide the assurances, one, that improvements that are being stated are going to be made, that they're going to have a useful life. And I relayed this to the parties yesterday, that we've had projects that were built in the 80s, we're back here in the 90s looking to do rehabs because of the insufficiencies of either products or the construction techniques, or sometimes forces beyond the control of anybody. But that's one of the reasons we have that, and I think you spoke to that earlier, you ran in responding, that the state doesn't have the same. They call for a certain investment, but we called it out. We want warranties. It sounded to me like some of that information has been provided subsequently, and during this intervening period of time. And that's my question. So, whether it's embodied in a plan or not, has subsequent information that's been provided, Christine and Ann, has that addressed some of these gaps as it relates to your analysis, or not? I guess that's what I want. Kind of my bottom line. I want to know that. So.
Right. So honestly, we received that memo, I think, the morning of our commission meeting, which was about 3 weeks ago. We did make adjustments to our staff report after receiving that memo. For example, one of the things that we had as an incomplete item was some of the property management information. They did, because of that memo, they did submit those pieces that we were missing, and then we removed that from your staff report. But I would just say, Supervisor Natoli, that we do have very standard guidelines we give to all developers, and we review all projects exactly the same way before we bring them to you, based on the guidelines the board approved. They were last updated in 1999, but they are pretty rigorous. I will admit they're more rigorous than some jurisdictions, and definitely more than the state probably. But that is because we have received feedback from this board in the past, wanting to make sure that if improvements are made to affordable housing developments, that they last a minimum of 15 years, and that the property is going to be well managed, well run, services are provided as needed, and things like that. So we do just try to go by these guidelines, and we're
good. I would just point out, and it's actually in Klein's letter, and I guess it's a positive in a sense, but I think it goes to the process that's utilized, as frustrating as it may be, and or, when it gets here, what that embodies as far as the recommendation. But in their letter, they said that the staff report properly stated there was no playground equipment to be installed, but as reflected in their current budget scope, this is the April 18th letter, so that's obviously been addressed, but it says, with the finalization of the budget, the developer has now identified that playground equipment can be afforded, and it should be installed. They provided an attachment and said, and they say, frankly, this element should have been initially included, in comparable equipment as shown in this picture will be installed. To me, that says the process works, certainly on behalf of the developer, but on behalf of staff. That's what, in this give and take and back and forth, recognizing that there are budgets, there certainly are drivers behind the financiers, as well as obviously the constructors and rehabilitators, but certainly from the agency standpoint. And to me, that's how this should work. And in a far from perfect world, it's not going to be exactly what everybody wants. But that does say to me, certainly, I think that the process, as frustrating as it may have been, is that, and I use that as one example, but it was one obviously the developer pointed out, and you just pointed out another one where information subsequent to that was submitted. So I've gotten a little better level of confidence as just in the last 24 hours as it relates to this. Certainly having read your staff report, having met with the parties, and hearing discussion here this morning. But I think your thoroughness is reflective, obviously, with the direction you received from this board over time. And I think working with individual members of the board and certainly other staff, try to get to a point where people find that point where people can be satisfied on both sides of the equation and projects can move forward. Because I think to Supervisor Cerna's point earlier that we do have a deficit. Your agency knows that as well as anybody else. And when you're trying to preserve 61 units of affordable and have it within the market rate complex, I would just say that to me is important. This member of the board has spoken to that over more than 20 years when we had projects that were controversial and actually turned down a TEFRA back in the late 90s. Because we had this debate about, trying to get some market rate inserted into affordable projects. And so here you have one that has those elements, and so it may affect the assignment of costs and affect the improvements and, what goes in and so forth. And yet you have that mix that I think is so important from a social standpoint, but certainly from a standpoint of livability and the quality of amenities, because you have, 100 or 200 and something units that basically folks can make a choice here and now to go down the street or go somewhere else. And the affordable units, folks a lot of times are, on a kind of a very narrow precipice anyway, and so they may feel a little more stuck. But you have that ability built into this project, which I think is important. And again, that may be reflected obviously in some of the back and forth that's caused frustration on both sides. So I just wanted to point that out. So,
I'm going to ask for privilege. Okay. This is my district. I think the biggest problem for me, because we've been working on this for 6 months with redevelopment agency and the developer, is that it's going through the state. And according to SHRA, we allowed that at some point in our history and in our policies. And if I understood Ms. Dozier, we could take that out of our policy so that we didn't get in this situation where the state can issue bonds on a project that we don't have the ability to require certain improvements made. We have to go on hope and faith. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's something we should discuss in a board meeting, whether we want to do that anymore. That doesn't apply to this one, but it's difficult for the developer who is trying to please two masters, if you will, and it's difficult for us because at our level we're used to having more authority to require certain improvements, and this kind of limbo land that we're in is difficult on everyone. And I'd like to have that discussion and see whether that's something we want to continue to do, particularly since we, through the redevelopment agency, through the housing agency, sorry, I keep mixing them there, we're charging fees for something that we're allowed to do, but if we're going to charge a fees, it seems like we ought to be able to put a bow on it and know that we're going to get what we need to improve the housing stock to our requirements, as rigorous as they are, and maybe we need to look at those too and see whether we're being too strict or not too strict. I don't know, but that's been my difficulty all the way through this, is what agency are we trying to adhere to? Agency rules that we're trying to adhere to. So that kind of.
Okay, no, that's good.
I didn't mean to interrupt Sue. I just,
right.
it was his point there, and I wanted to.
Yeah, good point.
Bring it up.
Okay, we can certainly bring that back at a future date to have that broader conversation. So, okay, with that, then we'll go to Supervisor Frost.
My question, there were a couple of my questions relating to the requirements that SHRA has placed on the developer, and so and I want to make sure I understand this, that if we release this to the state, they're not necessarily going to ensure that our requirements are met or the inspections, because they're listing in the letter here 8 different levels of inspection that's going to ensure that they are compliant in all these areas. Does this, if we were to take this letter and attach it as an addendum to their application, and then on Friday when it's submitted, will the subsequent inspections and follow-up ensure that our requirements as a county are met and that those that were agreed are met?
Sure, let me try to answer that. So just to be clear, there's sort of a statewide entity, CSCDA, who would do the issuance instead of SHRA or the Housing Authority. And then there's the state agency that oversees bonds. So there's sort of one statewide agency and then the actual department under the Treasurer's Office at the state. So the Treasurer's Office of the state, they do a paper review of our application, and then their board either approves or disapproves the bond issuance, and they're pretty much done. CSCDA, who would take the place of the Housing Authority in this situation, would continue, of course, on with the developer and making sure that all the financing came together, and then they would do, I know this because we've done a recent report about the other issuers. They do, for example, every 3 years, they'll look at the files at the property to make sure that income qualified people are living there. How that differs from the agency is that if we were issuing the bonds, we would go out there to the property annually and do a physical inspections, and we'd look at the project's files annually. Who else goes out there? The list, physically, the only other entity that would go out there after construction is done. Of course, during construction, a lot of the banks will go out there and making sure their money is being used correctly and inspect. But after construction was done, the tax credit staff goes out to a property every 3 years. So there would be tax credit staff out at the property every 3 years, but that would be it.
So my background is residential finance and developments and construction financing, and the contract is the basis by which the lender, everything goes based on the contract. So my assumption is that the bond holder and everything that follows would ensure follow-up on that. You're saying it's not necessarily to the standard that Sacramento County is asking. And then my question, the question that comes to my mind, and I'm hearing this more than once, not just in this situation, that Sacramento County's fees, in this situation, my understanding is that our fees are like 300% of what the state is. Our fees are much higher, and that our processes are more onerous. And so if we're wanting to encourage affordable housing and encourage projects like this, I'm just asking, are our fees higher than a lot of other counties, and why are our fees so high if that's the case?
Sure, let me try to answer that. Let me amend my previous statement. I realize sometimes the tax credit investor will go out to the property from time to time and look at it if need be too. So I just want to mention that, these people going out to the property. So there are 2 fees associated.
I mean, those high fees are the reason people are wanting to go around us, right? Because if it was easy and cost effective, everyone would just say, let's go to Sacramento County. They'll get it done fast and it'll be reasonably priced.
Well, let me just start by this developer. Developers have talked to me about our fees in the past, absolutely, if they want the fees reduced. And I can give you an example of a project we're working on in the city, but right now where we did reduce those fees. But this developer never approached us and said that it was a fee issue. They have always maintained with staff that it's because they have this agreement with CSCDA to be the issuer statewide, and they wanted to continue that same team. So I'm not aware that the fees are the issue, but I did, because I was curious, just last night looked at our fees here versus the statewide issuer, CSCDA. I found there are 2 fees. One fee charged by all issuers, whether that be LA City or San Francisco or these statewide issuers. One is a fee you pay at issuance, and then the other one is a fee you pay annually to monitor. When I looked at our issuance fee and how it's calculated compared to the one that CSCDA is requiring, they're very similar. I think a CSCDA is like $87,000 and ours is $95,000. So it's a little different, but not too much. The monitoring fees at face value, yes, our monitoring fees are CSCDA's, I think, will only be $19,000 a year if I calculate it correctly, and ours would be more. However, and if I had known that that was the issue, I would have gladly talked to the developer about it. But
how much more? How much more?
So our guidelines are for 100% affordable units, and so CSCDA, again, just doing their desk audit every 3 years versus what we do, would only charge $19,000, and we would charge $57,000, so quite a bit. But that's for an 100% affordable development. We are doing a project right now who did ask for reduction in their fees in the city that's only 20% affordable. It's 800 block of K. And we said, you know what, we're only going to charge you 20% of our fees. That will be before the city council next week. If we had known this developer had an issue with our fees, we would have charged only 20% of our fees as well to them, I'm assuming. That's what I think we would have done, which would have been $11,000, so much cheaper than the $19,000.
And are our inspections more frequent?
Oh, yes, we do it every year.
So
yes.
our fees are higher and our inspections are more frequent.
Right. You say once a year versus every third year?
They do file reports every 3 years. Only look, they never go out to the property to physically inspect it. We go out to the property and physically inspect and do files annually.
And those annual inspections are consistent with what everyone else in the world is doing?
Our annual inspections, it depends. We can get you a report. I think we might have provided to the board earlier this last month. We can provide it again. Some jurisdictions go out as needed. Some go out annually. It really varies. It depends on the governing body. You know, all the largest jurisdictions like Sacramento issue bonds, and they all have their own monitoring requirements.
Okay, so then just finally, it kind of looks like this letter that was presented to us addresses a lot of the deficit that in the staff report, the incomplete items in the staff report. And so does it address everything? I'm not sure I know Chair Natoli asked, but I'm not sure I understood. Does this address everything, and can we include this as an addendum that would complete their application and ensure that the county gets what we want, and that they can submit an application to the state by Friday?
So the big part of what we do when it comes to a budget is we look at what budget is submitted based on the work that's needed, and then we can say if that's enough money to do that. What the disconnect here, the big disconnect in this project is we're not exactly sure what's being done for the money, the budget they're proposing. For example, we asked for a unit-by-unit assessment of what needed to be done in the units. We weren't provided that.
Unit by unit of the affordable units? Or the
all of the units, because what they submitted to us, Supervisor, was that they were going to rehab 301 units, so it was all of it. And they gave us the number for how many cabinets would be replaced and how many tub surrounds would be replaced, and all these things for 301 units. And when we looked at what they were budgeting per unit times 301, it wasn't enough money. But so then they came back and they said, no, we're going to do fewer. We're only, we did some before, so we're only going to do like half of those now. Or we're going to do them as needed. So we said, okay, well, we just really want to make sure there's enough money set aside for each line item. Can you please tell us, give us a revised scope and tell us exactly what you're going to do, how many units, especially if you go, it became clear I don't think they had a unit-by-unit inspection. And so we never got sort of be able to reconcile the amount of what exactly was going to be done for the budget that was proposed. I will absolutely agree that they have told us in writing that they will take care of it. What our construction staff wasn't able to verify is there enough money in their budget to do all the work they're proposing.
Okay, That's all for now. Thank you.
Okay, Supervisor Peters.
Follow up to something Supervisor Frost brought up. If the state fees are $50,000 and ours are $19,000, agreed the work level is different. I think I heard you say that if you'd known that was an issue, you would have lowered your fees.
So
my question is, why does someone have to ask?
Because our policies are written for 100% affordable developments. I would say...
Well, but your policy should also say, if it's not 100% affordable, then we will lower our fees.
I agree, and next time we revise it, we will. These haven't been updated since 2009. We've been trying to update them since then. But I will say that it is rare, very rare that we see 20% affordable. I don't know the percent in our portfolio, maybe 5% of affordable developments are like that.
But if the policy said X dollars per affordable unit, that would kind of clear up the confusion.
And maybe we should make that change. If I had been approached and said that it was our fees, we could have talked about some of the fees, but we generally go by the fees.
Can we change that in this hearing? Are we allowed to change that in this hearing? Ms. County Counsel?
We won't be charging those fees because they want to use another issuer. So they would like to use CSCDA.
Okay, this is not the fee that you are charging.
No, this is the monitoring fee we're talking about. So we will not be charging that fee.
How many projects are there in this county of Sacramento that are this kind of project that are financed by the state? I think the previous speaker said very few.
By CSCDA, the statewide issuer bonds.
Are there others that finance them?
In the last 15 years, there have been 2 that I know of. Those 2 were both done in 2011. That's because the statewide issuer, same issuer, CSDA, had some ARA funds, which were the Economic Recovery Act funds that the federal government, and it was really hard to get loans. So that issuer had received some of these ARA funds to create their own loan pool, and so we absolutely brought. Both projects were in the county of Sacramento, so we brought those before the board, and we absolutely recommended that in that case, since they could access this other funding source, that it would be beneficial to the project to go with another issuer. But again, those are the only 2 I can think of, at least in the last 15 years, that we've done.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. I think that's covered the questions, so thank you, Christine. Thanks, Ann. And with that, I don't have the speaker form, but I invite Mr. Klein or his colleagues to come forward, and please put your name on the record, if you would, and turn it over to you.
My name is Robert Klein, and I thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the Supervisors, for the privilege of addressing you.
Mr. Klein, I'm sorry, raise the podium. I have a cold and my ears are blocked, and I'm having a horrible time hearing people. There we go. That'll probably help you.
Yes, is that better?
Yes.
Yes, thank you very much. So it's a privilege to address you, and hopefully I will provide some information that will be positive for you in understanding that the state does in fact have some very strict standards, 20-year useful lives, not 15, that are required and enforced by the tax credit agency of the state, the California Tax Credit Allocation Committee. But I want to start by thanking Supervisor Peters and her Chief of Staff, Howard Schmidt, for working with us and working with SHRA to bring closure to a number of these issues. A number of the points that we had provided documentation in a meeting in Supervisor Peters' office, including warranties for 20 years on the roof system, 50-year warranties on the vinyl system, 20-year warranties on the windows, all as required under the state tax credit agency, not 15 years, have not been reflected in the report. But we think that there's a number of people that were processing information, and perhaps even though they were submitted multiple times, some of this wasn't captured. it is important to thank SHRA because their staff does bring things to your attention that we tried to adopt and respond to, like the elastomeric paint on the stucco that is an issue brought up in Supervisor Peters' office. So we went over every issue. We have submitted backup bids, actual bids, on 87% of the line item costs to provide assurance that in fact we can build it for the line item budget. And those bids are in the possession of the construction staff. I'd like to just...
I'm sorry, Mr. Klein, those are the construction staff of SHRA or of the state?
Of SHRA.
Okay.
And we have indicated to the issuer, CSCDA, that it's our understanding that they're going to submit to the state as part of our package the report of SHRA and our response and our backup documentation, so the state will have all of this. But again, the state standards are 20-year warranties on all of these major systems, not 15. So for a context, could we just show the pictures of the project so individuals have a context for the project? So the first picture obviously is just the entry. Can we go to the next picture?
You have a clicker?
I think you have to do that, yeah.
Okay. Okay, it didn't go forward.
Why is it not working?
Well, maybe I can proceed and they can see if we can get to the pictures. We have some.
Don went to see if we could get it fixed.
Control room's going to get it under control. Hang on.
Okay, thank you very much.
There we go.
There we go.
Okay. Thank you. This is the community building. I guess the control room will need to move forward every picture.
No, just say next picture and they'll
Next
handle
picture?
it in the TV studio.
Okay, this is another shot of the community building. This is an interior of a unit. Next picture. Another unit interior. Next picture. Exterior, there's two types of buildings, one with vinyl siding, and that was replaced in 2010, 9 and 10 with a 50-year warranty under the CalPERS partnership that we were the managing partner of. Next picture. This is a gym on the site. Next picture. Pool. Next picture. And there's 3 pools on the property. But they're beautiful grounds, very inviting for families, lots of mature trees with 80% market rate, 20% affordable, hopefully creating a very good environment. But in addressing the issues that were raised, it's very important to realize that there are multiple levels of inspections that are required. The Tax Credit Allocation Committee, in fact, has a consultant that reviews the submissions to make sure, and staff reviews them to make sure that you can meet the 20-year sustainable life, which Supervisor Natoli and Supervisor Frost mentioned. It is very important to understand that when you do your construction completion, before you can get your tax credit certificates, your 8609s, that give the investors their first payback on those tax credits, there's an inspection to make sure you actually did what you said you were going to do. And that goes beyond the major building systems. It looks at appliances. You have energy standards. You have energy standards to comply with on your appliances. You have building systems that you have to comply with. And in responding to questions from supervisors, staffs, I think that it's clear, as well as in our representations, as well as in the submissions we've made to the agency, including in Supervisor Susan Peters' office, that even though in 2010 there were 6 roofs that were replaced, we are replacing all of the roofs. We are replacing every roof to make sure that we have 20-year lives to meet the TCAC state standards. So that's a demonstration that even if something has been replaced in a reasonably recent time period, you have to meet that 20-year standard, and we're conforming to that. It is very important to understand that we did put in writing to the agency that the fees were a problem and how they were affecting our evaluation and how they were affecting our equity. And I'm sorry if it went to a member of the staff that is not speaking today, but we can provide that documentation historically. It is a very constructive proposal that I've just heard being made. I think it'll help with more production of mixed income affordable housing, which has some very good social consequences for the residents. On the relocation benefits, the agency's policies specifically say if you're receiving agency money, you conform to the agency's form and guidelines. It says if you're receiving benefits from other state or federal agencies, you conform to their relocation guidelines. We're conforming to the California Tax Credit Allocation Committee relocation policies. We will meet and have to meet every standard of those, and we're subject to enforceability under that. In addition, it's important to note that we have tried and put in writing a response to every specific question on notices, on paying for moving costs, for paying for packing costs. All of those are state regulatory requirements under the Uniform Relocation Act. We have to do that to be able to do this financing. It is a requirement of the regulatory agreement of the state. So if we're getting tax credits, there are many layers of oversight. As the speaker from SHRA said, as Christine said, not only do you have Deutsche Bank, who will be looking at this and doing inspections, we have 25% equity. So the investors themselves have inspectors. The tax credit investors on the tax credit side have, as she referenced, will come out and do inspections. But again, the Tax Credit Allocation Committee will inspect your plans for sufficiency, for meeting all their standards, and then before you can actually get your tax credits, they will make sure you have complied, or they will not issue your tax credits. So we have governmental oversight, banking oversight, investor oversight, as well as the normal building permit oversight. It is important, however, to say we have tried to listen to the residents on the relocation plan. And so we think we're going beyond the relocation requirements. We know we're going beyond the relocation requirements, even under SHRA, because we're doing a non-displacement program. Residents don't like their keepsakes packed up, their kitchenwares packed up, their clothes packed up, their furniture packed up, and moved off-site. It's easier for contractors. It's a standard contractor request. We're doing renovation in place. The firm we're using has done 9,000 units. We gave the agency 5 different cities and projects where it's been, as examples to inspect. My understanding is that they reviewed that. We've never heard any issue with any of those projects. We've used them. It's important if you ask a resident, they want to live in their unit, they don't want to be moved out. We give them an option to move to a renovated unit. If they want to change their unit location, they want their unit. They want it to be near the pool, near the parking. So we're trying to listen, trying to innovate, trying to create a higher standard of non-displacement, and that's the program that we proposed, and we will be under the Uniform Relocation Act and under enforcement by the state. So with those points, I would like to say that everyone contributes to preserving affordable housing, but CalPERS here in agreeing to, if we can get the bonds done, to and the tax that come with the tax credits, they're agreeing to sell this project and held on to try and honor a legislative mandate to try and preserve affordable housing. I really appreciate them staying with us for 9 months while we went through this process. Preserving those affordable housing is critical. We've been doing that for 40 years. We've been doing it for 16 years on every CalPERS project we've been involved with. And it is a very difficult time for residents of this county. We would only be involved with being able to preserve affordable housing. It's our whole career, our history, starting with legal aid at Stanford Law School and working with the state legislature on establishing the Housing Finance Agency in California. So I would just like to say I'm open to any other questions, but we really do appreciate everyone's participation, and we think the recommendation that SHRA just made about adjusting fees for projects with 20% affordable or income integrated projects is very constructive.
Okay. Thank you, Bob, for your presentation. Anyone else from your team you wish to address, or if not, we'll take any questions from board members. Mr. Klein?
No, we're just open for questions.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a quick
Ms. Peters.
comment. Mr. Klein, I just wanted to remind you our discussion about the P-bid that's getting underway there and your discussion about getting involved in that.
Yes, and Chad Lewis is now a member of that committee. He is, I think, yeah, Chad should comment on that. We are engaged with that committee.
We were Vanessa on your staff.
Okay.
She contacted us. I attended the P-bid meeting 2 months ago, and I signed a document that she asked.
Great. Glad to hear that.
Okay.
Thank you. And then also to remind you that some of the neighboring businesses are having trouble with tenants in your building climbing the fence and breaking into their business, and that your property management was going to address those things.
Yeah, and we have interviewed the neighboring businesses, and from our understanding, the Property Alliance, which is the 5th largest property manager in the country and has a specialization in mixed income projects, has responded and has effectively addressed their issues, but we will double check on it. But
okay, I just want them to stay in touch with the businesses in their circle there, right, and make sure that everybody's...
In reports that we got, what we understood was that what was interpreted, at least in the one significant case we're aware of, was there were people fleeing through the project that were dealing with people trying to steal things.
Yeah.
Who fled through the project and went over the fence and through the business
area.
area.
Think they were not your tenants, that there were people coming in from the front, the project going through the back.
Yeah.
But still, right, your security should be addressing that.
Our security is very focused on that, and we have interviewed the adjoining businesses, so we're very focused on it.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. No other questions at this point in time. So this is a TEFRA hearing. I have no one signed up to speak on it, so is there any member of the audience, in addition to those who have spoken, that wish to address the board? All right, then seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board then, and I see Supervisor Kennedy's punched up, and I know Supervisor Peters want to offer some comments, so Patrick.
Yeah, a lot of the comments that were made during the questioning and so forth, and particularly Supervisor Cerna's comments, I'm right on with. When we had our JPA meeting on January 30th, the date indelibly imprinted on all of our minds, I questioned then whether or not we should look at SHRA's fee structure and processes, and is it discouraging entrepreneurial private investment into affordable housing. I think it is, and I think that a lot of the comments that were made today, even by SHRA staff, maybe indicates that it is. I think we need to do more. We're in a crisis situation in Sacramento County for affordable housing. We need to do more to make it easier for the private investors to come into our community and build these types of projects, not make it harder. So that's my comments.
All right. No one else punched up. Ms. Peters?
Oh, wait, does anyone else have any comments?
Nobody else.
I've said what I need to say.
I couldn't hear what you said.
I've said what I need to say.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Speak up, Mr. Turner.
I'm more unhappy about it than you are.
All right. So with that, then, no other comments, Ms. Peters?
Okay. I'm going to move for approval of this project with a lot of buts. I just think it's been an unnecessarily difficult approval process. I think primarily because of using the state funding for this project. When once Mr. Klein personally got involved, we had a much better flow of information and agreement to the needs stated by the redevelopment agency. And we talked about how we need to preserve our affordable housing stock. This area of Arden Arcade has a lot of old stock, and we don't need or want to let it get run down, and it's important to get this investment in this project. I do want to repeat, I'd like to have a discussion about the policy of allowing other agencies, other government agencies, having the ability to finance locally, or maybe they need to be set up so that they adhere to our standards. I also would direct SHRA when they send their, I guess it was a resolution that was mentioned to the state. I also want a copy of the staff report sent, a copy of the memo from the developer, and a CD of this hearing to all go with the reso or whatever approval document it is that you send to them.
Okay. Yeah, and I would second your motion. I would just offer too that when we bring the discussion back, that to I think the point Susan Peters, Supervisor Peters made, that I would want to take a hard look at that. If they do require us to pass on that's the point that they have to. If in order to have the ability to go forward, the TEFRA has to be conducted, and sometimes it can be conducted in other communities, and we've seen that, or some can come to us for bonds and so forth. And so, as a part of that full discussion, though, I think that
it's frustrating to have to have a TEFRA hearing, pass it, and not have the authority.
Right. So, okay, that's the motion. It's been seconded by Chair. Is there any other comments or questions? All right. With that, then, with knowing the direction that was embodied in the motion, please vote.
Unanimous vote.
Thank you all.
Look forward to your help in the P-bid.
Thank you. All right. We've got a number of items yet to go this morning. We have some presentations, and so we want to give them adequate time. So it's called next. Oh, we got to go back to item 46. Oh. We'll come back in a moment to item 46. Okay.
Item 48 is the presentation providing services to more seniors.
Okay, we have some presenters here from our Adult and Aging Commission, and I want to thank them for being with us this morning, and I'll let them do some self-introductions. And again, we welcome them and look forward to your presentation. And we've got one to present to you folks as well on behalf of the broader community on the Older Americans Act on the next. And then we actually have a presentation on the Elder Death Review Team. So it's kind of our older Sacramento morning here. So good morning.
Good morning. My name is Rebecca Graulich. I am the interim chair of the Sacramento County Adult and Aging Commission. I would like to thank Supervisor Natoli for coming to our commission in February to discuss a variety of senior resource topics and for inviting us to come to present to you today. Our commission formed an ad hoc committee chaired by Commissioner Mary Schlueter to look at a couple specific senior resource topics. As they began their investigation, they identified an overarching issue, and we decided to change course and have them focus on that topic. Commissioner Schlueter will present to you their findings and recommendation. I would like to stress that we view this presentation as a first step in an ongoing dialogue with all of you and with other county departments, advisory boards, and organizations that are focused on dealing and addressing senior issues. So I'd like to say thank you and introduce Commissioner Mary Schlueter.
Good. Thanks, Rebecca. Good. Okay. Mary. Good morning.
Good morning. So I'm Mary Schlueter, and I'm going to guide you through this presentation that we put together for you. I'd like to start out with the Sacramento County demographics. The current population within Sacramento County stands at about 1.5 million residents. That's as of 2016. And of that population, approximately 285,000 residents are seniors or 60 years and older. That accounts for about 20% of our population, which means 1 in 5 residents in Sacramento County are of 60 years or older. Now, I'm sure everybody here has heard about the age wave, the graying of America, all of that. Baby boomers, of course, some of us may fall in that category. But there are statistics that support the increase in the number of our seniors in the coming decades. And they're estimating that between 2011 and 2030, the baby boomers are all going to have birthdays turning 65. In fact, approximately 10,000 baby boomers will be turning 65 every day for 19 years. So that again reflects that the population currently is only going to increase in that age group. So our commission is always looking at the aging needs of our community, and these are just a variety of topics and subjects that we have identified as very important to our community. And as Rebecca had mentioned, there was one of these topics in particular that just, rose above all the others, and that's what I want to talk to you about today. The ad hoc committee got together and we had many meetings over the last few weeks just on this topic. And I'd like to start with a little story. One of our fellow commissioners has an acquaintance that lives in a senior apartment complex here in Sacramento. And she raised the concern that there is an outdoor stairway that goes from the first floor to the second floor that's missing the handrails. So she expressed a concern to one of our commissioners that she's very concerned about falling and injuring herself, or maybe one of the other residents possibly falling. And she's also in fear of retribution if she reports it to somebody, that there could be some issues for her down the line. So one of our commissioners stepped up and said, hey, let me find out where I can report that issue to. So she started out with the call line 211 in Sacramento, and 211 referred her to a county office. And when she spoke to the representative at the county office, that person said that that was not something that they could help them with, but possibly one of the federal, that sounded like a federal issue. So maybe you should talk to a federal office. So then the commissioner responded, well, would that be a local federal office, or would I go to Washington, D.C.? And the response of the person on the phone said, gee, I'm not really sure, but why don't you try 211? I'm sure they can guide you. So in a matter of spending 10 or 15 minutes on the phone, one of our commissioners started at point A and went around to the different agencies and wound up right back where she started. Mm-hmm. And she still didn't have an answer. And the acquaintance is still in fear of falling because that issue hadn't been resolved at that point. And I'd like to add that
Is it not yet resolved, Mary?
that I would have to get back to you with the commissioner and check with her on that.
Okay.
But I could follow up with you on that for sure.
Okay, we'll get out, because you kind of left off when we got back to 2-on-1, and if that's where it started, I could see this, as you were saying, the circle, so.
Yes, yes.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks.
So just to add to this, my day job is, by day, I'm a geriatric care manager, so I work with a lot of adult children and seniors in the community. And one of my primary functions is to connect them with resources and support services throughout the area. And time again, when I meet with families and the seniors, and I lay down a plan and I tell them about all the great resources that we have in our county, they are surprised and shocked because they had no idea that these resources were available. They're having difficulty kind of navigating the systems that are out there. So that brings me to this. So our ad hoc committee at that point said, gee, why don't we look and see what existing resources do exist in Sacramento County. Now there are many, like hundreds of agencies throughout the county. This is just a sampling, which includes governmental agencies as well as nonprofit, for-profit, as well as senior resource guides, which there are some really great ones that are published and circulated throughout the community, offered by various agencies. Now, some of the experiences that many of us have encountered are with some of the resource centers are that many of them don't know what other agencies offer as far as resources and support systems. There's not really much of a connection there. They might know some, but it's really hard to keep track because there's just hundreds, if not thousands, within the community. And then there are some locations throughout the county. It could be a doctor's office, it could be a senior center, but where you can walk into a lobby and you see a display of brochures and different things that offer solutions or references or referral services for the senior community. However, many times that data or those brochures aren't regularly updated, so they could be outdated. There could be programs that have brochures there that are no longer funded and don't exist, or companies that have gone out of business, and sometimes even flyers from a senior fair or something that happened a few weeks ago that, it's not happening anymore. And then there are other organizations that will charge a fee for a company or agency to display their materials. And then there are also some agencies out there that have an inclusive or exclusive policy for a company or agency to list their information or resources within the community. But overall, we've got some fantastic resources definitely within Sacramento County. So the good news is what I just stated here. Lots of agencies, lots of resources and services, but the bad news is many people, in my experience, have trouble finding them. They don't know where to go, they don't know where to start, they don't know who to call, they're not sure when they can get help, how quickly they can get help. So our committee came up with this idea, and I'm going to just kind of give you an example. So my dad no longer drives, lives at home, so he needs transportation assistance. And of course, there's children, me and my siblings, but we all have our busy lives and our families, and we all work. So we can help him out once in a while, but not all the time. So he still needs transportation to doctor's appointments, picking up groceries and errands and things like that. So if I had a question and I wanted to come to, in Sacramento to find out what transportation options were available for my dad, where would I go? Well, the idea is to have a centralized database resource center where people could go throughout Sacramento County to locate the resources that are available throughout the county. And we're talking resources, whether they're government, so it could be state, county, nonprofit, for-profit, anybody and everybody, all inclusive, but easily accessible via the computer, so a website, or they could call in and speak to a live person, or they could actually walk into a location and speak to someone one-on-one and access their information that they're looking for. So then they get their answer and they walk away a very happy person. They're not spending like 10 or 15 minutes on the phone going in a complete circle and not getting any closer to their answer, as was experienced by one of our commissioners. And we're not really thinking of an idea to replace any existing agencies or services that are in the community. We're just looking at a centralized type place where people could go, one-stop shop type of idea. The next step is we went and thought, wow, why this is a really good idea, and I'm sure we're not the first ones to think of it. And why reinvent the wheel? So we started searching to see who else out there might have something similar to what our idea was. So we looked at San Francisco. They had various means of offering resources out to their community and assimilating it out. South Toledo also. But then we came across Marin County. And it was like, eureka, here it is. This is exactly what we envisioned, Marin County. So I want to tell you a little bit about the Marin County model. They offer exactly what we had envisioned. So there's 3 different ways that their community can access senior resources. They could pick up the phone and call. They could log on to their website from their computer, or they could walk in and actually speak to a live person. The way the telephone option works is it's manned by 3 social workers, and they are all trained in counseling and resources. They can provide information and assistance to their callers, and they can initiate county services. So an example of that would be if there was a senior living at home and they needed a little bit more help around the house. It could be with cooking or cleaning or running errands or all kinds of different things. But they couldn't quite afford bringing in a private pay caregiver from an agency. It was just too expensive, not within their budget. Well, they may qualify for some county services, and that social worker could actually process the application or screen them to see if they might be eligible for a county service, such as in-home supportive services. Now, another option is website access, and this is an actual snapshot of their real website. As you can see, they call it a community resource guide, but it's got the really large, easily identifiable icons. It's super easy to navigate their website. In addition, it provides all services in the county. So it's services not only offered by the county, but there could be services offered by the state programs, there could be nonprofit services, there could be for-profit services, and they're all inclusive on this website. In addition, it's offered in multiple languages, and it's updated quarterly, so you wouldn't have to worry about receiving outdated or invalid information. And then there's the walk-in services, because some people do better on the phone, but some people want that face-to-face. They want one-on-one services. So they offer walk-in services during their normal business hours. They also offer public computers or access to computers in their lobby that contains this database with all the senior resources. There's always a trained social worker on hand to answer questions or to assist people with the computers and navigating through that. And people can walk in and speak to a social worker directly, or they can make an appointment ahead of time and have that one-on-one service. So the recommendation of the Adult and Aging Commission is for Sacramento County to develop a community aging resource agency. So like we're going back to the one-stop shop where people could just go one place and find out what's available within the county and not just county resources. And it would serve all socio and economic levels. It would serve anyone that needs information and assistance. So anyone, that could be a caregiver, that could be a senior, it could be an adult child of a senior. It could also be a professional as myself. It could be a physician or a nurse in a medical setting that's looking for resources for one of their patients. And it could all be accessed via telephone, website, and in person. The return on investment would be, again, it would serve all socioeconomic levels. It would streamline and hasten access to the resources. So there wouldn't be the kind of, calling one department or one agency to be referred to another, to be referred to another, to be referred to another. It's one stop. They could go one place, get the information they need, and then move on. It would also help maintain and improve the standard of living for seniors in our community and support successful aging in place. Aging in place is where senior adults prefer to live at home through the end of their life rather than move to a senior community or another location. And aging in place studies have shown that in upwards of 90% of senior adults prefer to age in place rather than move and relocate. This would also prevent increased need for government services as far as the seniors go. Now, the great news in all of this, we did reach out once we found the Marin County website and we loved what we saw. We reached out to them and had several telephone conversations with the people in charge over there, and they even offered to partnership with Sacramento County if Sacramento County chooses to move forward in developing this type of system. And that partnership includes sharing their database, their infrastructure, their research and development, everything that they did all along the way. It's kind of like going back to that why reinvent the wheel. If it's already been invented, we could glean lots of information from them, save a lot of time and money. So here's a snapshot of Marin County's actual timeline and resources. Their project began back in 2014. Excuse me. What happened was the County of Marin sent out a survey to the residents of Marin County just to kind of tap in and find out, get the pulse of the community to find out how user-friendly their systems were and easily accessible they were for the senior community. And it came back with negative results. The county was shocked and surprised that the systems that they thought were working all along were not working, and that, in fact, the senior community was having a difficult time accessing information online via the telephone and also learning about other services that were available in the community. So at that point, they the Board of Supervisors there actually hired a consultant and asked them to research it further. They did further studies and surveys which backed up the initial survey that there was a problem, that the system was a bit broken over there. And the consultant brought in stakeholders in the community, so people that are currently working with the senior population. So they included government officials, they included geriatric care managers, people just from all the different, touching the different aspects, the boots on the ground kind of people. And then they came back and reported to the Board of Supervisors, and they said, yeah, we definitely have a problem, let's fix this. So then over the period of the next year, they funded money to continue the research and the development. And that's when they built the database. Their IT people in Marin County built the database and everything, and the stakeholders to help identify the needs and kind of figure out what needed to be involved and to make that successful. So fast forward to today, that program's been working over in Marin County for about a year now, and they have very positive feedback from the residents of their county, that they're very happy with what they've come up with, and it's working. So the Adult and Aging Commission are suggesting next steps possibly is to form a steering committee of community stakeholders. They're currently working with the aging population, that they could reach out and contact Marin County and have discussions with them to learn more about their model. They could conduct surveys and studies within the county to identify the needs further, and then report the results back to the Board of Supervisors in 6 months or so. So in conclusion, back where I started with this presentation is, we've identified as a commission that there are many, many needs for the senior population within Sacramento County, but the overarching, the biggest one that really stands out amongst all the rest in our eyes is that there needs to be a centralized senior resource type of center. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mary. Certainly on behalf of the commission, and before you leave, or maybe Rebecca's going to make some concluding comments, I'd like to, you have a number of commissioners that are here with you as well, and I think certainly the body of work that you bring us today is, a compilation, obviously, of the efforts as you outlined, and we're certainly very pleased that folks are willing to serve in a capacity. I think this is a very good launching point for certainly some of the work that the Commission's done over the years, but now as you've really, I think, focused in on, I know as Rebecca said, I had the opportunity to visit with you folks a few months ago to, I think, bring some focus to a variety of issues, but certainly from the standpoint of the Commission and the various disciplines and perspectives that you all bring, bring a recommendation to us and kind of what the next steps as outlined. And so I appreciate your making the verbal and visual presentation, but all the work that the commissioners and some of your colleagues that are on here today have contributed to this, because obviously this is again, as I said, a compilation of work that you folks as commissioners have done over the past many months. So. Let me ask any questions or comments of the presentation, and I think the question, I guess maybe turn it to Nav and to Paul, is kind of what next to with our commission having done this work, kind of setting the table, so to speak, and saying this is what we think is a very important priority, and to the what next.
Request Paul and our DHHS staff to sit down with the commission, look at the idea that they presented today, and if we were to implement, what would that look like? Okay.
Because of the piece that I saw there that Marin County at least did was that, and I wouldn't think that we'd put it all off on the commission, but there was some assessment done, and obviously they spent a pretty significant sum of money to do that, but maybe a way to shortcut that to at least get to some focus, so we can, again, I think, affirm what the commission brings us, and then talk about how we might be able to put the pieces together to actually have something that works for, and with 10,000 people a day turning.
And as the board knows, part of my work plan for the upcoming years was a focus on senior services, and I want to see how this piece fits in with the work that I would like to do in that area.
All right, very good. Okay, anything else, Mary?
I was just going to suggest that we'd be happy to assist in any manner that we can and pass on the connections that we have over Marin County, if that would be helpful.
It might be good, again, that I see both Paul Lake and our agency administrator and deputy county executive and Sherry Heller here, and some of the other staff that work directly in the social service network, particularly those that's focused towards senior services. I think it might be good, again, to, having heard the report, and maybe to convene once you've had a chance to analyze what's presented here today, to not just attend a commission meeting, maybe get you've had a subcommittee working to bring our professional staff at the leadership level together with representatives of the commission, and be prepared to come back in maybe 90 days with a status report as to where we are on this, and what your take is on it from your perspective as you're focusing on senior services, and some of that may be reflected in budget discussions. And September is typically an opportunity, depending upon what things look like, for us to supplement activities, and this may be one of those that could fit that mold. So,
yeah, we'll look into it.
Okay. You okay with Paul going out and meeting with folks? Sherry, you okay? All right. Very good.
Great. Thank you very much.
Very good. Rebecca, you want to introduce your commissioners since you're the chair? You had folks been here very patiently and quietly, but I know that they're very active, at least from my visit to the commission, that you had good participation, and appreciate your leadership as chair. So I want to just take a quick moment here to introduce them, if you could.
I would certainly like to introduce our commission.
Sure.
So first of all, come on up. Silvio Molina is our vice chair. So we are both interim in this position as interim. The chair and vice chair both left in midterm in December, and so Sylvia and I stepped up to the plate.
Very good.
And then Mary Schlater, come on up, who you've met. Mary, as I said, she is also the committee chair of our outreach subcommittee, and then she shouldered this ad hoc committee, which truly was a matter of weeks. They pulled all of this together. Casey Simon.
Hi, Casey.
Casey Simon is our chair of our recruitment and orientation subcommittee. She and Sylvia are really partnering hard to reach out to influential people and groups that maybe have a little bit more influence in the senior community to bring more expertise and knowledge to our commission. Gordon Marshall, come on up. Gordon is our chair. Gordon's the chair of our oversight committee and is bringing expertise to that. So this is, the group here are the, I know. Leslie? Oh, Charlotte's here too. So I'll introduce a couple more, but I first brought these people up because we 5 are the executive committee of the Adult and Aging. So then additional commissioners who are no less important. Leslie, come on up. It's Leslie Julian now.
Hi, Leslie.
She's a very active commissioner and who is not only participates in the outreach community committee, but she's also now volunteered to be on a second committee, and that's the recruitment and orientation. And Charlotte Dodson. Charlotte has spent many hours listening to this presentation and coaching and sharing as well. And in addition, she was on the ad hoc committee, as was Leslie. You were on the ad hoc committee.
And Gordon.
Oh, and Gordon too. Sorry, Gordon. So they've all spent many extra hours and some sleepless nights. So this is many of our commissioners.
That's great. Well, we appreciate the introduction, and I've got a presentation to all stages from on Older Americans Month, but I know Supervisor Frost has something she wanted to weigh in before we do a presentation. So.
I just wanted to thank all of you for your work on the Adult and Aging Commission. As a person who is a caregiver, my husband and I care for my 95-year-old mom, and I can't tell you how many hours, and it's really not on me as much as my husband, how many hours he spends trying to identify resources, affordable resources. And it goes from a driver to adult daycare to senior companion. The list goes on, and it's, I hope in your work you will also think about resources for the caregivers, because it's sometimes a challenge, and I really appreciate what you're doing. I think it's really needed, and I want to thank you for your work.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good words. Okay, we'll call the next item because I'm going to come down, and this is a good representative group to present to. So.
Presentation of resolution proclaiming May 2017 as Older Americans Month in Sacramento County.
Yes, absolutely.
And I certainly invite our professional staff. They want to join our commission members down here too, and we have folks that work in adult and aging as well. But we have again, I think we're very privileged this morning and honored certainly to have our commissioners here with us to have the presentation that you all put together and have worked on, and also then to recognize May as Older Americans Month in Sacramento County. And this has been a long-standing tradition in this community and county to recognize the contributions certainly of our older citizens, but also to, I think, recognize the work of those who volunteer and continue to in many different capacities, and I think you as commissioners certainly exemplify that. And this resolution recognizes, and I won't read all the whereases, but certainly the wisdom, the sacrifice, the hard work of all of those who fit the classification of older Americans, and it sounds like the numbers continue to grow on a daily basis. But the purpose of this month is to certainly applaud the innumerable contributions and the ways in which older Sacramentans reach across the generations to help guide and mentor and nurture our children and young adults and adults of all ages. And certainly the work that you've done, certainly in the community, in your professional lives and continue to do, but also the contributions you make in our churches, our schools, and other settings in our neighborhoods that actually improve the quality of life in so many ways. And there are many activities that will be scheduled certainly throughout this month. One of them, obviously, your presentation here today. But our elders are our shining beacons who, following a lifetime of work and effort, continue to work and contribute, and they deserve our deepest respect. for all that they've done, but all that they offer to help enrich our lives and certainly serve as excellent role models for people of all ages. So this board, in joining with a broader community, certainly recognizes you as commissioners, all those who you certainly represent, in essence, the 285,000 older members of the Sacramento community who fit that category, and others who haven't reached that age but certainly work on behalf of, I'd like to Sylvia and to you as well, who I don't think have reached that magic age of 60 yet by any means, but certainly are making it home. Oh, okay. So that magic age of 39 then. How's that? So there we go. Back that down. But at any rate, we want to again express our appreciation and our heartfelt thanks to each of you and to the many tens of thousands of older Americans and older Sacramentans who make our community the rich and diverse place that it is. We can all acknowledge your generosity of spirit, your patience, your endurance, and your strength, and offer our gratitude and respect for all those who, again, join in proclaiming May 2017 as Older Americans Month in Sacramento County. And we honor all of you here today by your presence, and thank you for your work. And May 2017 is Older Americans Month in Sacramento County. So, Rebecca, on behalf of the...
Wait, Gordon is our official recipient.
Oh, Gordon's the official recipient. Okay, very good. So
I want to say thank you on behalf of these people, and thank you for your cooperation. And I want to say it's these people here who are giving me a zest for life. I'm regaining my youth for these people. And thank you, Doc.
Thank you, Gordon. Here.
Photo op.
Why don't you?
Yeah, that'd be nice. Thank you.
Casey, get in here. Casey.
Come on over.
She's got a pink phone to match your
Great. Thank you.
Thank you all so much, and we'll look forward to keeping working. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good to see you. Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Rebecca. Good job.
Thank you so much. Thank you. All right.
Okay, well, we thank all of you, and you're certainly you're invited to stay for the next item. It was a little more sobering aspect of getting older, and we actually going to have a report from Paul Durenberg on behalf of the Elder Death Review Team, and I think it...
Mr. Chair, before you move on to that, I'd like to ask for a special reconsideration on item 46, which I just picked up a conflict on, so if we could, I'd move to reconsider 46.
All right. We have a motion and a second to reconsider item 46. Please vote. And then read that.
Unanimous vote?
And then read the item into the record one more time, so then we'll vote on it again.
No problem. Authorize the Director of Airports to execute the scheduled airline operating agreement and terminal building lease between the County of Sacramento and the airlines operating at Sacramento International Airport and Mather Airport.
Okay. There we have it. Do we have a motion then to approve that item?
I'll move the item.
Okay, it's moved and seconded to approve the item as noted. Please vote.
And the motion passes with Supervisor Peters recusing.
Very good. Okay, thank you for that. All right. Then with that, we'll call item 50 then, Flo, please.
Okay. Item 50 is the Sacramento County Elder Death Review Team 2017 report.
Paul, good morning, still?
Good morning. Yes, it's still morning. I first wanted to thank all of Supervisors for your continued support of the Elder Death Review Team in Sacramento County. I also wanted to, since I don't get to do this very often, publicly thank our EDIRT team members. They put in a lot of extra hours and extra effort to come to the meetings and give information. And I kind of want to give a little shout out to Dr. Heller and her team of wonderful professionals that are so dedicated and so intelligent about the issues that are going on in our community with our elders, that it's really inspiring to be part of the team and be with them. I was going to start out my presentation about statistics in the community, but following the Aging Commission, that seems redundant. You well know that there is a growing number of elders in our community. The unfortunate side of that is that it increases, and you've seen the spike in the number of calls for service, both to APS, law enforcement, and medical interventions that have happened because of these increases. And on another negative side is elders are also being targeted in our community, whether that's neglect issues involving their health care, or a criminal aspect of assaults and robberies, or financial scams. There are people out there that are targeting elders in our community. And part of our team, although we really do look at elder deaths, we do look at a wider range of issues, because the elder deaths that we review really do incorporate a lot of issues that are faced by elders in our community today. So as part of Penal Code Section 11174.9, we are supposed to review cases and recommend strategies for education, prevention, and, if necessary, prosecution. You'll notice that the report that you had in front of you, the case studies that we had include 7 specific fact cases. I wanted the supervisors to know that's not the entirety of the cases we reviewed. We reviewed 20 cases over the last 2 years, but most of those cases that we reviewed in our findings, they really were cases of natural causes that did not involve any recommendations that were needed or any further follow-up. So we decided to, in our presentation, to focus on the cases that involved recommendations or at least education to the public when they reviewed the report as to the kinds of issues that are going on in our community. You'll notice that if you look at the statistics that we put in the chart, that the age ranges go from ages 54 to 85. Both genders are represented in abuse victims and suspects. You'll notice that the female numbers were a little bit higher in this report than the male for victims of abuse. There's a wide range of ethnic backgrounds and also financial backgrounds. We did have one case where there was an IHSS worker that was providing care to one of the elders. And you also notice that our 2 elders that were the oldest elders in their 80s, both were suffering from dementia issues, which is very common when you have people that are getting into that age range. When we look at where potential abuse is coming from, you'll also see a wide range of potential abuse locations. It could be neglect from a family member who's taking care of an elder. It can be a paid worker that could give inadequate care. Sometimes paid care workers are through IHSS, and those workers do receive training, but sometimes people will get an outside person, a private person, to become a care worker, and those people oftentimes have no education and no training in care. There's also, in our victim on case number 4, you can see that there were strangers that actually just befriended the elder with really an intent to do criminal activity that ended up in the elder's death in that case. We did make some individual recommendations on each separate case that was represented, but really we wanted to focus on the major recommendations at the end of the report, because we thought that was more, it really represented the bigger picture as to what we needed to focus on. And interestingly enough, our first major recommendation really is a supplement to the Aging Commission that just presented. You'll notice that in our first case, there was a delay in the reporting of injuries. And what was really concerning to our team was that we had an elder that was in a nursing facility that was licensed. And then the owner of that licensed facility persuaded that elder to come live at that person's home, which then does not have the same licensing safeguards. And there was a delay in the reporting of the injury in that case, where our recommendation is, it's going to be the same with a number of these recommendations. We're not sure that the board actually has the power to be able to enforce some of our recommendations that may require legislation at a state level. We'll leave that up to you as to what your power is as far as recommendations go. But in a case like this, where you have a delay of multiple days of a severe injury, an injury that a coroner found could have contributed to the death. If we had a requirement for anyone in a skilled nursing facility where there's an injury that there be a 2-hour reporter to APS, and that would include any other location even in a non-licensed facility, if someone owns both a non-licensed and a licensed facility, we may have been able to get to that patient. We may have been able to do some prevention and sustain that patient.
Paul, can I just ask you on that one? I mean, a couple of these were pretty troubling, and here you had someone who was only 54 years of age. Right. Is that correct? And I guess I'm curious, and maybe we don't know, or maybe it's still an investigation, but it was referred to community care licensing, so this has enough time in between. Do we know whether there was anything done? Because someone to have taken a fall of the magnitude that certainly resulted in a skull fracture and bleeding of the brain, that's pretty serious. Yeah. I mean, obviously it resulted in death, or at least contributed to the death. And I guess what I want to know is this person still licensed to, and whether that happened in a licensed facility or they persuaded this person, for whatever reason, to live at their home, and then this occurs and that person ends up dead at 54 years of age, and that to me is a cause of concern. And I don't know what community care licensing has done in this one, but I guess I'm really curious to know. Do we know?
When we presented the report to you, community care licensing was still doing their investigation. They had not completed their investigation, so there were no actual final results as to what they were going to do. And of course, in the meetings, they don't talk about, if an investigation is still pending, they don't talk about what they are proposing to do. But they do have the power to shut down a licensed facility.
And this incident occurred in 2015? I didn't have the dates on some of the, I mean, it was just that your report was 15-16, but do we know when that occurred?
I believe that one was 16.
It was 16?
Yes.
So it was last year?
Yes.
Would that be something you could certainly, again, I for one am interested to know what they would conclude, and I don't know how long their investigation takes, but obviously the person after 7 days died, so, and that's concerning to me. Someone lost their life.
Absolutely. Yeah. I will make sure that once that actual decision is made, that we'll report it back to
Okay, that'd be great. Thanks.
Sure. And our second case is a case that really is representative often of what APS faces. APS does not have the power to go beyond an elder or an elder's family when they refuse APS's intervention. It's a frustration that APS also often faces. So our recommendation on case number 2, as far as reporting to law enforcement and reporting to APS, when there are concerns about follow-ups with health care, because many times the first signs of neglect and abuse can be the basic health care kinds of things, or basic grooming is a sign. And that really kind of ties into our recommendations down below for that case. The case that got a lot of discussion, it was case number 3 in regards to drug testing. We really put this into the report just to kind of explain how the system works right now and where gaps can happen. Just to kind of explain how a report can be made and how difficult it is sometimes for law enforcement to do follow-up. In this case, because the death happened and there was a number of days before anyone suspected that there was any kind of abuse, by the time that happened, there was no way for law enforcement to go ask back and get a search warrant for any blood test that would be relevant to be able to show what that person's blood level was at or around the time of the death. And again, it's a case when you look at it, I think immediately your eyes might point to an IHHS worker as a suspect. But in reality, that IHSS worker really has a limited number of hours per day that they spend with the patient. But what that does really, when you're a family member of the deceased and you get information like this later, you're filled with stress and frustration because the system isn't able to respond and give you the answers that you want because everything is too late. Now I've had some extensive talks with Rick at IHSS, but he was very cooperative with our report and it really helped us with our recommendations. They do a really fine job over there, and he talked about how this to actually creating a system where you required testing would be very, very difficult, very, very cost expensive. There is no other place in the state that does it. The rules of IHSS do not require that. In fact, IHSS does not actually do any supervision of the people that are getting paid under the program. It's really the elder themselves that actually determine who the IHSS worker that they pick to be their care worker is. And it can be a family member or it can be a stranger. But I was really impressed with the training programs that were available through IHHS, not only for their workers, but for people that are not IHHS workers. And that goes, again, to our later recommendation. The case number 4 in regards to background checks was really our recommendation. I think this is one of those educational tools. If we can get out in our community and explain to elders that it is an available option for you to do a background check on somebody that you may be considering as a care worker, that could be very, very beneficial and stop some of this neglect, especially the kind of thing where strangers are befriending elders to try to gain their confidence to try to further criminality.
Paul, could I just ask you on that one? Again, that was probably one of the most disturbing of all the ones here. The criminal abuse referred to prosecution, if you could just tell us where that's at. But again, the description here, the very brief ones that, a person was obviously, they drug him around the house, blunt force trauma injuries. They were, the items stolen from were being sold on Craigslist while his dead body was retained in the garage. It's a pretty gross description, but it's in reality what it was. And so I guess I'm curious as to, has there been a conviction on this? And
yes, we were able to attain a murder conviction in that case.
And what was the sentence?
I don't have the sentencing details off the top of my head, but I believe it was a first-degree murder conviction, so we're looking at 25 to life.
Okay, I'm glad justice was served then.
Yeah.
Thanks.
On cases 5 and 6 and 7, those are the kind of cases that we repeatedly see, where you have family members that are overwhelmed with the caregiving responsibility, really don't have the educational background or the knowledge of how quickly pressure sores can become ulcers and can really contribute to sepsis and a real quick decline on elders. And oftentimes, you're faced with elders that know that they have children that may have some drug abuse issues, but don't want to disclose anything because they don't want to be responsible for, in their last years, to be responsible as the one who puts their son, daughter behind bars. And I think it's important to really get out to the community that there are a lot of options that don't involve law enforcement or prison in regards to drug recovery that you can go to and you can communicate and you can get help that really don't necessarily involve locking up your son or daughter. And really getting help for that son or daughter is going to be better off for the senior, and it's going to be better off in the long run for the adult. Moving to our major recommendations, our major recommendation really, I was really kind of summed up by the Aging Council, because we were talking, our team recognizes also that there are a lot of wonderful options out there for seniors, and a lot of seniors out there in our community have no idea and don't know how to access them and find the system that is there frustrating if they make an initial attempt that fails. And that's why our real main recommendation for this report is to hold informational meetings, seminars in each district of the community. I'm hoping that each of the supervisors would have a location that we might be able to use. I have been a contributor on a couple of these in years past, and I find that they're very well attended, especially if you have a little bit of free food. I noticed, Supervisor Frost, you were talking about your 95-year-old, I think it was father?
Mother-in-law.
Okay, mother-in-law. I have a 92-year-old father that he's still living on his own, but over the last year he had some real health declines and we had to deal with the recovery process. So I understand a little bit more now than I ever did about what the process involves and how frustrating it can be even for a caretaker who thinks that they are educated. And I've worked in the system, and there's still frustrations. So I think if every time we have an educational seminar like this, not only do we go out and we educate elders about what are the opportunities and available options in the community, but we also send the message that we care. I think that's just as important as the information that's going to be in the seminars, because I think there's a lot of elders out there that really wonder, does anybody really care about us or about me personally? And so I think that message is going to be key. There's also the second major recommendation we talked about is talking about kind of integrating a little bit law enforcement's training when they're contacting elders. A lot of times elders, as I said before, are a little bit reluctant to disclose, especially if the neglect or the abuse involves a family member, but they may be fearful. And one of the things that we found in our Family Justice Center, which has been, as you know, open still less than a year, is more than 10% of the 1,400 people that have come through our center are elders that are seeking restraining orders. And we've had a number of elders that have come down, gotten restraining orders when they've talked to our either therapist or social worker, disclose that they do not feel safe to return home. And one of the wonderful things that we do have in our community is that elder safe house. And we've been able to take elders straight from the Justice Center in our van right to the safe house. So that kind of impact is I think, really beneficial for our community. And I think if we can train law enforcement to not just get frustrated when you're faced with a non-cooperative elder, to give them an option of, we can take you down to the Family Justice Center, or they can come pick you up, and we can get you a restraining order, and that might make you safer. And then at that point, when you're at the Family Justice Center, then you talk to an elder about what a safety plan is and how you can make sure that you're safer by planning ahead. So all of these things, I think, can absolutely make a difference. The third recommendation is, again, talking about skilled nursing facilities. Most of the skilled nursing facilities are good and reliable, but there are a small percentage that are not. And reporting deaths to an ombudsman immediately afterwards alleviates the potential for a case to get through the cracks, because right now there are some skilled nursing facilities that just have a doctor come in and sign off on death certificate. No one reviews the case. No one reviews if there's any injuries. No one reviews, there's no autopsy done. So those cases are very, very difficult to be able to know, especially you don't really have to worry about it in a skilled nursing facility that is quality and doing good work. But on the small percentage that aren't, those are the ones that you really want to be able to have that kind of response to.
Paul, you were suggesting, or at least the recommendation here suggests that it might require either state legislation or a county ordinance. It was things to me that, if it's a county ordinance, that I, for one, like to see us consider that. Again, I don't know how you necessarily notify those folks if they're registered or a community care licensing or some other way that they register, that you would have at least some way to track and then put them on notice that they'd be required to report that, and that it's not merely just, you said, a doctor's signing off and that's the end of the matter. So it seems to me that would be pretty simple for this county to address, to require that reporting to assist our elder death review team in its work, and hopefully send a message, like you said a moment ago, we do care. It may be a very small measure, but it may help identify sometimes after the fact, which may not help that particular person, but may lead us to other potential problems, and keep good operators rewarded, but also if there's somebody who is out of bounds and not attending to people's needs and comes to attention of the authorities via that that requirement, then I think that's important. So do other counties have an ordinance that requires those to be?
Not to my knowledge, and I don't remember having any discussions about other counties with our team, so okay. It's unknown to me.
Okay, I guess I just look to Robin if you could take a look at that, and I think again it's a small measure. It doesn't change it doesn't change anything that's reported to us today, but it might help in the future. And to me, it seems like it might be a one easier step that at least provides one more tool. As you're doing your work ongoing, but certainly looking back as well. Yeah. Thanks.
And then the last recommendation is just continual training for emergency response and first responders and law enforcement. Every time you get a team trained, somebody moves, somebody transfers, a new person comes on. So continual training is always important. And that really concludes my presentation today. Thank you for your patience and for caring. Do appreciate it. We did have some graphs. I don't know if they were helpful or not. We put a graph kind of showing where in the county are elder deaths that were
Did you want to bring that up? It's loaded in. You can bring it up. I think it's your second slide.
Okay.
There you go.
There we go.
Okay.
And Supervisor Frost, I apologize for not updating the name. I feel terrible about that.
Oh, it's all
right.
I'm new.
Okay, well, thank you, Paul. Again, thank you to you and your committee for its work, and I'll ask my colleagues for any questions or comments on the report.
You did mention that you would like to have some workshops.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So if you contact my office, maybe.
Is your mic on?
Something like that. Sorry.
It isn't just me that can't hear you. No one can hear you.
I'm sorry. I would be interested in discussing a possible workshop for District 4.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, and I would as well, but I would also want to roll this in, I think, Nav, to you and Paul and to Dr. Heller, to look at some of the things here that I think go back to what the Commission was talking about relative to resources, and whether it's having a centralized location or the availability, training, and I think to look at, you're going to give, I think adult and senior services. Seems to me that not just for care providers, but also for other folks who may have friends and family, that an awareness, but the opportunity then, and even for seniors themselves or elders who are in situations where they feel like it's helpless, it's hopeless, and and they just survive until they no longer survive. And I think that part of that is caring, but also doing what we can as a broader community, and certainly with some of the resources we have available to us, to not only take those that are most subject to neglect and abuse, but also those who might be at some risk. And I would hope that in a civilized society, we could find a way for an aging population to live in dignity without, these situations. And these are truly the anomalies versus a growing population that reflects a growing number of incidents like this. So I guess I would just say I would expect that as part of this report and the Adult and Aging Commission report, maybe you can come back to us and, in between the June and September budget framework, and it maybe involve some policy direction. It may involve some work, certainly workshops that we can do that might even assist, I think, in getting information out, but kind of taking the temperature out there. What is it that people, beyond what the commission has done, are seeing as being needs, either resource-wise or information-wise or assistance? Who do they go to? Because these obviously reflect some of the more serious situations, but just the challenge that Supervisor Frost and others can reflect on you as well, Paul, and trying to get those resources, even when we know how to navigate the system, can be challenging. So,
Supervisor Natoli, I would absolutely, he is on my list to talk once I get done with the budget. The review that I want to do on my work plan, I have a fairly, a little bit longer time period than getting it done in August. I wanted to kind of get it with Paul Lake and with all the different folks that spoke today. I want to get a better feel for what all the issues are. These folks live it, they've done all the commission work, and then come back to you with what needs to be done with policy, if there's funding realignment, what are the kind of things we got to do, kind of the approach we did with homeless, and have a roadmap, if you will, as population's aging, as every speaker has mentioned, and we're going to see more folks that are getting older. And if our budgets need to be realigned, I wasn't on an aggressive schedule to get it done in June or September. I want to spend some time and really think with them on how we need to realign our items. If they're short-term items, looking at Marin, absolutely we'll do that, but I'm viewing this as a little bit longer time period to work with them.
Okay.
And I was happy to be able to pass out my cards to the commission so we can
very good.
coordinate and work a little together.
Well, thank you for your work over the years, too. I know this has been a passion for you, and certainly you're a good legal mind, but you also have a big heart, and I know you care deeply about certainly the people in this community, and appreciate it's reflected, obviously, in your report each year, Paul, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, that's a receive and file. Then we'll anticipate getting a report back and continue to work with certainly folks that presented to us this morning, so very good. Any other questions or comments? All right, if not, thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
All right, we do have a couple off-agenda speakers that have been waiting patiently, and so we'll take those before we take the noon recess into closed session. Okay, I have the first one to speak was Kevin King. Kevin submitted some material, and then followed by James Saunders. So yeah, Mr. Kim, come on forward. Yeah, please. Yeah. Good afternoon, Mr. King. And we did get your materials. I think you submitted to each member of the board, and the clerk did distribute that. So I'm going to allow 5 minutes to allow you to, because I know you get a lot of material, but I think the essence is obviously you have some requests you want to make to the county.
Okay,
So
yeah. I'm going to start off with good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kevin E. King. I lost a son, Kevin Eugene King Jr., to a hit-and-run driver in 2007 on Meadowview and on 24th and Meadowview. This had a big impact and change in my life. I'm here this morning to speak and address. There's been some sheriff's misconduct. Yesterday was Law Enforcement Memorial honoring those who lost their lives in the line of duty. Some law enforcement officers have really good, loving hearts. I understand some of those law enforcement officers who really, truthfully, and honorably swore to uphold the law and to serve and to protect my mother. In fact, was a dispatcher for the California Highway Patrol for 27 years. They were state police first and then California Highway Patrol. Well, the problem I'm having here, board members, is my mother's home is off of Tangerine. Whose district is that? Off of, that's your district? Hi, Mr. Kennedy. What's going on here is there's a problem, an issue with the ownership. When my mom was passing away, she was worried about who was going to get the money, and my brother took that. I got another brother that owns a house in Rockland. So he took all the, she was in law enforcement, so she had a nice savings. He took all the money that was supposed to be split between us. So therefore, I sought to go after the property after that, and I did an application for property transfer, and I had and ownership, and I got the tax exclusion. Well, the sheriff's department has been out there. I've been dealing with them for 6 months because the house went vacant. It became vacant for a year and a half, and I would just drive by and see blankets hanging in the windows, and windows kicked out, and doors kicked in, and finally one day I went by there after, because I put the property, I had the property transfer in 2014, but Federal National Mortgage foreclosed on the house. Don't never take a reverse mortgage, because I'm working on that now, and I found out that they fleeced her. There's not a house over in the Parkway District worth $469,000. She paid, my mother paid, in 1994, my mother paid $105,000 for that home, and for 13 years, for 10 years, she paid $1,300 a month. That came up to $156,000 or something like that. And I'm like, who in the heck got that much of a profit on the home? So therefore, I found out that I noticed that when I got all the paperwork on the house, the historical owners and the loans that she took, and I noticed that she was fleeced and scammed. And I noticed that on some of the loans that she took, the partial number for the tax for taxes wasn't there. If you're getting a loan on your house, the partial number for taxes should be on some of those loan papers. I didn't see that. Moreover, I studied the reverse mortgage law, and I stayed stiff on that, and I found out the trustee's deed was fraudulent, because they can't meet the new. There's no way on the reverse mortgage. You have to. It has to be in 10-face bold type. And you have to have counseling classes. You have to have 14 points in counseling classes. So therefore, the sheriffs arrived out there, and one guy threw me out in the storm on December 23rd. I was thrown out in the storm. I said, I had bills in my name. I had called, and he said, well, one of the sheriffs came out and said, just get a bill in your name. So I was trying to establish, I've got 2 cases pending in Sacramento Superior Court. And he wanted to know where I was on the cases, which is, that's beyond the scope of his duty. He don't need to know where I'm at. That's not his business. His job is to serve and protect. But he threw me out of there and let 2 Hispanic males come in to my house and take some of my property, and I didn't think that was appropriate. And somebody's got to pay for that. Now I'm going to challenge Scott Jones to look into this. I'm filing another complaint, because on the 4th, 2 more. I thought those guys were going to leave it alone, because I filed a citizen's complaint on the 4th. 2 female sheriffs came out and were beating on the window. I've got somebody in the back room to watch it in case somebody tries to get in, because somebody tried to break in on me. And when the sheriff threw me out, when I wrote the citizen's complaint, it looked like his boot print. Somebody kicked the door in, and I think he was mad. It looked like the same military style boot he was wearing, because I'm a military boy. My father was Air Force. My brother was military police. I was raised on base and born on base. But the thing I'm saying is, what I wanted, the 2 sheriff deputies that came out on the 4th of May were banging on the window, and I looked out. My friend said, "Hey man, the sheriffs were out there." I looked out the window, and they said, "Open the door." And I'm going to do that, but I don't think I'm not going to open the door no more until they come up with a warrant and some legal paper. So I opened the door, and they said, "You're not supposed to be here." I said, "You got any paperwork? You have a sign, unlawful detainer by a judge? You got anything to say I ain't supposed to be here?" She said, "No." I said, "Well, what are you doing here?" Like that. And both of them came over on their break, because they're mad that I wrote those other officers up for throwing me out in the rain. They were over there on their break. I called dispatch, and they said, we don't know who they are out here. Yeah. So I told them to get out, and one of them act like they were going to reach for their gun. That's the reason why I'm here today. I've been putting up with this crap for 6 months. Now I'm going to take it from here, but I want you. Listen, I don't like guns in the house, period. I told they were in the garage. She bought her computer in the room.
Kevin, you kind of wind it up. I know there's a lot to it, and you wrote a lot down,
She
so
bought
kind
her
of bundle us
computer.
up.
I'm been upset. She bought her computer in to look up to see if she can get me on something and put it on my wash machine. I'm fed up. I'm getting tired of it. I told both of the female officers to get out. Get out. I said, I'm going to shut the garage door, and if you want to stay in there, you're going to be locked in. It's hot. And she said, you better not, and reach for the gun. But I called dispatch, and dispatch didn't even know they were out there. That's harassment. I'm here this morning because they're supposed to. I feel law enforcement officers, even the sheriff's department, should be out getting along with the community. I feel like that was being loose cannons. They called 6 more officers, came out to see what the heck was going on out there. So all I'm saying is I wanted to let somebody know what exactly is going on, because they dispatch didn't even know they were out. They took my friend to jail. He had a misdemeanor.
Yeah, I saw that in here, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, that wouldn't have never happened if they wouldn't have been taking their break coming over there to harass me.
Okay.
I couldn't believe it. But now Scott Jones is going to hear about it, and I wanted to let the board know, because I wanted them to pay for the stuff that those 2 Hispanic males took.
Filed a claim on that.
I filed a claim. Okay. Brett Carr said he was going to approve it, but it's not right. That somebody's got to pay for my property. If I'm kicked, they had no right going where they are at. Okay.
So Kevin, let's do this, because got another gentleman wants to speak off it as well.
Well, I just wanted you to get a piece of that, because I had to get that off of me, man.
Okay.
I have to get that off my chest.
Okay. And we'll make sure that, again, you've submitted a pretty comprehensive packet here.
I'm doing another citizen's complaint on them, because that's not right to take my friend to jail. I got him bailed out.
Okay.
And they were looking for code violations on me to shut me down. That's what they were out there for.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Kevin. You bet.
And I appreciate all of your time.
Thank you. Thank you for sticking with us this morning.
Keep us together.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. All right. Then Mr. Saunders, you come forward, and I'll reset the clock here. Yep. And thank you for your patience as well. And just tell us your name and.
Greetings to the board and to Chairman Don Natoli. Thank you all as a whole. It's sad that African Americans has to come over here about basically cop interference. I dealt with the sheriff department myself.
Yeah, we're going to raise that up there, make it a little easier.
Thank you. Yeah. This is once again dealing with 2016 when I was, this was January 20th. That's not what I first came here to talk about, but this man inspired me more because he's recognizing what happens in your own community. What happened was I called, first I let River Oaks Apartment be aware that I had a problem from an ex-military person who threatened to kill me. He also carjacked me. 2 days later, he was upset. That was January 22nd. It was a catch-22, as we use in the play of words. I contacted dispatch. Now I have a recording of that as far as the flash drive is concerned. I was the one who called. He home invaded me. I was on the phone with dispatch. The sheriff said the deputy said he did not get a dispatch report like that. They also made a false report and said that I was waiting outside. This was in a preliminary report at court. But those are some of the issues that we talked about in my complaint. I want to move on to the further, what's really bothering me today. I am homeless. I no longer stay there, but I was home invaded. River Oaks Apartment had a file against this person and many others who were racial and disrespectful. I was not being hostile. I have health problems. I see the doctor. I just got out of the hospital emergency room for some ailments. I continue to see doctors, and it's about to be hot. Me and the son, as far as the heat and living out there, would be extreme exposure. This is setting me up for death. I am serious about having a place to stay, and I'm asking a question more or less. Since I called the police and it was recognized with their investigation that I did tell the truth, and I did give it to River Oaks Apartment, I was a victim of a crime. I was home invaded and assaulted. I would like to be supported as a victim of a crime and also be able to go over to the DA's area of crime, victim crime, and be supported. They have a voucher in which you were trying to help me with Paul Lake, and what it was talking about was trying to find a place. It takes 30 days and you have to go out looking. I don't have that energy, and it's a lot of times I would have came here just to come and speak to you all. So I would like to have that opportunity to file victim of crimes, so we can get the expedient of me finding a place to stay, and we can right a wrong. That is what I came here for. I appreciate your time and your energy, and I see that Susan Peters does have a cold, and Godspeed. I wish she'd get well soon. God is real good because I'm wearing green just like you, and I didn't know you were wearing green today. So in one accord, thank you very much. This is James Saunders.
Thanks, James. Appreciate it. I know last time Paul was going to follow up, so could we have him take a look at that question that Mr. Saunders posed relative to whether there would be some assistance as being a victim of a crime? So
absolutely.
Okay, we'll follow up on that, James. So
thank you, sir.
Good. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay. All right. That's the speakers we have for the morning session. So we will. Noting that 1 to 2 o'clock items is going to be continued for 2 weeks. We can start. You want to start at 2:15? I know you have a presentation. Is that okay to start at 2:15? Come back at 2:15, Patrick. Okay. All right, so why don't we come back at 2:15? Yeah, we have a closed session. Yes, we do. So, all right, so we'll adjourn until 2:15, regular session, go to closed session.